Hey everybody, this is Roberto. Hope you heard something awesome today. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be doing a Wednesday workshop. We like to do Wednesday workshops. Sometimes we do monetization Mondays, and of course on Fridays we do YouTube channel reviews where we review your channels in exchange for super chats. So tonight, since it's workshop Wednesday, we're actually going to be doing a thumbnail workshop here. We've done these before on the channel. And so what we're going to do is we're going to open up Photoshop, and I'm going to be showing you how you can put together YouTube thumbnails and try to make some things that may feel advanced for some of you. We also will look at how certain thumbnail styles are done, how other channels are doing their thumbnails. I'm going to show you guys some really basic stuff, but also some advanced things as well, or things that might feel advanced for you that ultimately make for good YouTube thumbnails. And what we'll also end up doing is we'll look at thumbnail concepts that work for not just my channel, but for other types of channels. I'll show you how some of those can be done here in Photoshop. There's actually some pretty cool approaches you can use for some of these. Primary example is I did a mock-up for somebody to make an example out of for their potential channel. They were looking at doing something. So this is obviously not something that conceptually works for my channel, but it makes it for a great learning experience for a specific type of thumbnail style. There's also something that I was working on in terms of kind of a demonstration that I was doing in a training for thumbnail concepts that are much more general, just in terms of locking up text and typography and teaching you guys how to essentially make general thumbnails as far as certain rules for how many lines of text to use, how big you can make certain things, and also just different types of approaches to thumbnails with regard to laying out text left to right, top to bottom. So as you can see, this one is a top text thumbnail here that we use more for something involving sports. This wouldn't be the final version of a thumbnail by any means, but it just kind of shows you the concept of a text lockup and how it can work. This one also uses text at the top, and it shows you how that could be used in a versus style thumbnail. We don't have the graphics in there, but you get the idea. And then this one, simple text at the bottom and making it something easy to read and scannable. This one going with our concept of only using 2 words for each line and a maximum of 3 lines if we're going to use text. And this one puts it on the right, whereas this one puts it on the left. So these are just meant to show you guys layout concepts for text, because text is something a lot of you struggle with when it comes to thumbnails. And then this is an example of how we could do something that looks very cool, but it uses some very basic principles. Since this literally only required, for the most part, aside from us darkening that up, this really was only what 5 total layers, including a background, but yet it looks really cool. So there's a way to do a lot of these things, and it doesn't have to be as complicated as a lot of you think. In fact, some of my approaches to thumbnails, as cool as some of them can look, are actually really simple. I believe that in modern YouTube, honestly, that the majority of thumbnail design in modern YouTube actually comes down to a really good foundation in the photography. And a lot of you, your biggest problem is that you're not doing the prep work of having really good and intentional photography to work with for your custom photography. For example, if we look at some of the most popular channels in YouTube, you look at someone like a Mr. Beast even, it really starts with the photography. In some cases, yes, they are using AI shots with him and doing body doubles, or using AI to generate his body or do a body replacement swap. You could also do that with traditional Photoshop, but with AI, even in Photoshop, it's actually better to do that now. I'm gonna show you guys something when it comes to the photography standpoint. So one thing I'm gonna do real quick is I'm actually gonna screen share my folder that has my photography that I've done for my recent YouTube thumbnails, so that you guys can have an idea of the importance of just intentional photo shoots and posing. So if you guys take a look at this, this is actually really straightforward. I am doing the photography, and the way that I'm approaching this, there's a way you can do it by yourself. There's a way you can do it with help. In my case, my brother helps me with my photography. I have a whole photo studio in my basement, but all you guys need is a clean wall. You just need a clean wall in your house and decent lighting, good lighting. For a lot of you, I do have a link in the description of this video on YouTube where I have budget gear that you can buy off of Amazon and you can get good lighting. Most of you, you can use an $80 ring light from Newer that you can buy on Amazon, or you can use a type of light that we call a cob light, and you should get a bicolor cob light. I recommend the Aperture 200X. That's probably around $300, $200 to $300. It's affordable if you save up for it, but if you don't have that kind of money, you just get a bicolor ring light from Newer for about $89. The reason you want a bicolor light to do the photos for your thumbnails in terms of lighting is you'll be able to control the temperature for the lighting, and that will control a lot of the look. So for you guys to understand a little bit more about temperature, let's bring this back on me for a second, all right? So I'm gonna control the temperature of my lighting right here with my Elgato lights and my Stream Deck from Elgato. If I turn the temperature here to be very warm, you can see how that affects the color and it's not looking great. If I do it too much on this side, then it's not as flattering for my skin tone. So you can see that the temperature makes a difference when it comes to your lighting. So you want to light for your skin tone, and that's why you're going to want bicolor lights. That way you can go between fluorescent and tungsten and you can find what works for your skin tones. For a lot of you, if you have a darker complexion like me, you might need to warm that up a little bit. The cool light might be too much. You might still need to warm it up if you have a lighter complexion. If you're very pale, you'll want to warm that up a little bit because then it won't be flattering to you. So you want bicolor lighting for that reason when you pick your lights. Now going back to the photography and the posing here, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have different poses. Sometimes you'll want a different wardrobe. If you're doing certain things, and some of you, I know some of you do green screen video. I do green screen video. You actually don't want to do your photography in front of a green screen. The reason is it'll be harder for you guys with the photo editing to deal with the color bleed compared to you doing it with your video. So you want to just shoot on a plain background that's either white or black. In my links that are in the description, I tend to have a link for a backdrop that you can use that is relatively affordable. It's about usually between $160 $200 to get one of these backdrops that you can stand up that is white or black, and it's all self-contained. There's no setup involved. And what I'm going to do is for the chat, just to make things simple for a lot of you, I'm going to drop a link for this in the chat. I'm going to recommend most of you at least get the white background, the white backdrop. So widescreen white backdrop. I'm going to recommend that you guys get this from Amazon. This is my affiliate link. And the reason I'm going to recommend this is the white backdrop will handle most of your needs. It also can be really good for you guys to film on if you have a small room. If you have a small room, this gives you a clean background to fill on, and it makes your videos look a lot better. But for the photography, for you to make your thumbnails, this will also be a lot better because then you can cut yourself out in Photoshop and Canva with basically one click because you're against a clean background. Now, one of the other things you want to do is you want to try to avoid standing too close to this if you're not using a multi-light setup. If you're using a multi-light setup, you can make sure that there's not as much shadow behind you, which can make it easier to cut out and to mask these things in Photoshop or Canva to remove the background. So that's going to help you out a lot. The other thing you want to do is you want to do multiple poses. Sometimes physical interaction or comedy can be very good when it comes to your posing for your thumbnails. And so you can see that facial expressions, you want to make sure you use the full gamut of emotions. There's a point where we actually only do basically headshots and things like my arms folded just so that we have different facial expressions. We wanted things with me surprised, things with me angry. We wanted things with, if I want to shoot a video on avoid these problems, avoid these mistakes. We wanted things like that so that we have a lot to use. And, it helps if you have somebody shooting for you. Now, if you don't have someone shooting for you, you could buy a $15 remote and you can shoot these poses with yourself with a timer with your camera and still get everything in focus and everything the way you need it. If you just use a remote, you can also use your phone with some modern cameras, but that's what you would do with a tripod if you don't have someone to help you. You'll obviously need to do a couple of test shots to make sure everything is lined up and it's the way that you want it and in focus, but that's how you're gonna do it. So I had my brother to help shoot, and that's why I was able to get a lot of shots done and get them done with confidence. And we were able to sit down and do this for maybe like 90 minutes. So the foundation of good YouTube thumbnails comes down to photography. And that's why I want to go over things with you like poses, props, facial expressions, and the camera settings that are going to help you. We are going to go into Photoshop. You are going to see me put together and piece together thumbnails and how I would approach them. But one of the things that I think is really important, at least to start with, is a really good foundation with the photography for whatever the concept of your video is going to be. So you might want to sketch these things out. You might want to storyboard them, and that's going to help a lot of you make better thumbnails like the ones you see from big YouTubers. So when you see a big YouTuber like Mr. Beast or anyone like that doing thumbnails, and you do see these advanced YouTube thumbnails that look really cool and have all this storytelling, they're able to have that storytelling because it starts with pen and paper, and then it starts with them being able to do a photo shoot that makes sense for the content that they're actually doing. So hopefully that all makes sense to a lot of you. If you have questions, you can feel free to drop them in the chat. We are taking questions from the audience. And I just want you guys to realize that this is something that should be literally a paid course by itself, but you're getting it here for free. And this is probably the only place you can get something this detailed for free. And so one of the things that I want you to be aware of is when you're getting photography for your thumbnails, it's okay if you don't have a professional camera and you use your phone, but if you use your phone, you do need to use a lot more lighting to compensate, even if it doesn't seem like it. That way, your photos don't come out grainy and they don't come out looking amateurish, and you want them to be tack sharp. To get sharper images for your thumbnails, there is actually an approach that you need to take. And I'm going to explain something here in terms of the camera settings. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch to sharing just a single image here so that you get a better sense of how tack sharp this is. So to do this photo, is actually, you would think it's not that complicated, and deep down it's really not, but there are actually a couple of things going on here. For one thing, to get this photo, aside from the lighting and what's going on, we also had to make sure that I was at an angle to where we weren't getting reflections in my glasses. So to do that, we had to light a little bit more from the side instead of straight on. If you are someone who wears glasses like me, and you look straight on, a lot of times that will cause reflections and glare on the glasses. But if you light from above or from the sides, then it doesn't do it as much. Primary example, if I look up here, the glare reflected off of the wall from my lights will bounce back into the glasses. The main reason that you're seeing glare a little bit now is because of the white from the screen bouncing into the glasses. So you have to be aware of lighting from the sides and from the top in order to pull this off. We also had to use a really large diffuser. We used, I think, a 60 centimeter or larger diffuser on my lights downstairs in the basement to just spread the light out more. And that helped us a lot with being able to make sure that even though I'm wearing a hat, even though we're not trying to get glare, that we were still able to light my face correctly. The other thing you might notice is that everything in this image is in focus. That's part of why we want a clean background, whether that's a backdrop that we buy, which I linked in the description, or whether we have a clean white wall. We want to make sure we don't have any distracting elements in the background that Photoshop or Canva will pick up when we're trying to do our cutout. The other thing we want to do is, and in this case, I'm not using mock glasses, but you could use mock glasses as a prop, but I'm using real glasses because I'm blind as a bat. So that, that's something I need. Basically, I'm nearsighted. I can't read things that go basically past my arm's length without my glasses right now. So I wear glasses. We used real glasses in this one. We used this giant pencil prop because this is actually really good for certain thumbnail concepts I could want to do in YouTube. And one of the other things we did here is we made sure that to get everything that I have, me, my props, the glasses, my face, everything in focus and tack sharp no matter where I am, we shot this at f8.0 on a real camera. If you're going to use your phone, you want to actually use some kind of app that lets you go into manual settings on your phone, and you want to shoot at either f4 or f8. Now, when you're shooting at f4 or f8, you also are going to want to shoot at a high frame rate because of camera shake or someone holding their hands. You're going to want to shoot at a shutter speed. You're going to want to shoot at a shutter speed of about maybe 1/200 or 1/250. Now, the problem with that is usually that would make for a very dark image if you're not in direct sun. That's why you need bright lights in order to make this work, and you need bright lights in order to get the power. You need like powerful lights in order to be able to overcome those settings. Shooting at 1/250 and shooting at f8.0 or f4.0, it's going to make sure that your image is sharp. It's going to make sure that there's not any blurriness, and it's going to make sure that it's a freeze frame and that it's very sharp. But you need bright light in order to compensate for that. And you want a low ISO. You want an ISO of 200 or lower if you can get it. That's why there's no artifacts and there's not a lot of noise in this. And you want to especially pay attention to low ISO and noise if you wear black clothing like me, or if you have black hair or dark skin. And this lets us get the full details, full contrast, and everything we need in our photos. And remember, the photos are the foundation of your YouTube thumbnails. So now when we are able to cut out and remove this from the background and go into Photoshop, which I'm going to bring up here. So when we're able to then take something like this and go into Photoshop, it's going to make our lives easier. So one of the first things you're going to want to do is you'll want to take a photo like this. You want to drag it into Photoshop. And you can either do one of two things. You could commit to it at this size, or you could go ahead and start to begin to size it top to bottom to how it would more or less crop in your final, or you could make it slightly smaller. It doesn't matter because it's going to be a smart object. We can click done or enter or this checkbox at the top to confirm. And that gives us our basic image there. Now, of course, for final, I'm going to want to make sure that it aligns and it stretches potentially to the bottom. Maybe we'll make it larger than the frame. So don't worry about this too much at first. We're going to click this one button that says remove background. And because this is very sharp, hopefully it'll do all the work for us. You could also choose this select subject to see and preview more or less how it's going to cut out. As we can see here, it's actually going to do most of my work for me with no problem. So I could do that. I could also deselect here and click remove background. And so this has effectively removed my background. If I want to know for sure that this has done a really good job removing my background, I can use the red paint bucket tool, put a layer behind this, and then I see that it did an almost perfect job. Now, there are a few imperfections here. Primary example, right in here, which I can clean up later, it has some imperfections, and also it did fail to catch this little piece right here with regard to inside my glasses. I can use shortcut W or go to the quick selection tool in Photoshop. Unfortunately, you'll have to do this manually by hand in Canva if you're using Canva, but basically I can try and get it to quick select this area, and then I could paint and mask it out. Alternatively, another way I could look at doing this is if I want to try to be precise, since this one is more of a shape, I can go ahead and I can use the pen tool, and I can try and get this to be very accurate, and I can click Alt on these anchor points, and I can try and get the perfect shape here of this, or pretty close to it. Move that anchor point in here a little bit. And then in my selection, I could, try to go to selection, and I could feather this, select and mask. So I can adjust here things like the feathering, contrast, radius. So I can look at those things. I can click OK. And so if I select for this, this would ultimately, when it's all said and done, this is the area that it will attempt to mask out. I can use things like object aware or color aware. And then the idea here is that when I do this, I'd be able essentially to just have that area selected and be able to cut it out of my image. Now, another way you can approach this, and this is not something that everyone does, because you can do this and make this a selection, feather radius, we'll do it 3 pixels. Nope, we don't want to feather at 3 pixels. We will do selection, we will feather 0 pixels, 0.3. We'll do maybe 0.3. And then we can go to the paintbrush tool here, set an opacity to 100, and then we can mask that out, and that'll mostly get our job done. So you can see that that allowed us to clean that up. And when we zoom out, no one is the wiser. So that's one approach we can do to that. We could also manually try to paint some of this out by hand if we wanted to. I have a Wacom tablet. So that means that technically, if I want to do this and if I want to get in here with my Wacom tablet, I could zoom in and I could clean this up. I don't have to take a ton of time on this, even though we're doing a workshop, but I want to show you an example of this. And so if I were to do this with my pen, I can just paint this out manually. Now, I might want to make my brush a little smaller, a little bit more precise. And so by hand, I can just clean up the areas here if I really wanted to try to make this look super perfect. Now, there are a couple of other techniques you could use to try and clean up your images like this. You don't have to be as precise as I am. A lot of you could just fudge this in about, 2 or 3 minutes with no problem, and it would still look pretty decent. You don't have to be a perfectionist about it, but I want you to see these techniques and see this is also why it's worth paying for thumbnail artists if you aren't comfortable to do these things, or you don't have the time, or you're not a specialist, or you don't have the best tools, or you don't know how to use those tools. So this is something that you can do. Also, this shows you that if you have more complex situations with things like your hair, your makeup, your face, or what have you, that there's a lot of different techniques or things that can make it more complicated depending on your situation. If I didn't have braids, for example, all my photography and video and green screen probably is a lot easier than other people's. So I have to work just a little bit harder because of my hairstyle. But there are other situations some of you might run into with your hairstyle or your complexion, or um the wardrobe that you wear. If you wear certain wardrobes with patterns, maybe that can throw certain things off. Like if you wear a lot of plaid, or if you are doing a green screen, you might not be able to do a green screen as easily if you're blonde. You probably, if you're blonde, are better off doing a blue screen effect instead of a green screen effect. But if you do that, you can't wear blue clothing either. So, these details all matter for the things that you're doing. And, it's something that you'll want to just, consider in your process. You could theoretically try to clean some of this up with the quick selection tool. It just depends on whether or not you feel it'll be accurate or how patient you are. It doesn't bother me to go back in and to just do a little bit of retouching here and mask this out with the brush. And I wanted to show you guys that you would just, why even it's a good investment sometimes for something like a Wacom tablet. Doing this with a mouse would be a nightmare. But since I'm doing this with a literal physical, equivalent to a pen and pencil, it's not that bad and it doesn't bother me. And it's actually almost therapeutic to do something like this. Again, I'm not going to sit here and try to make it 100% perfect in the time that we have, but I'm going to get it pretty close just so you guys can see what that process could look like. And remember that this is why YouTube thumbnail designers and thumbnail artists get paid the big bucks. They get paid the big bucks to make you look as good as possible and deal with all of this tedious nonsense. Again, cleaning something like this up should not take anybody an hour to do. This is like, this could be like the cleanup process, the retouching process could be maybe, 10, 20-minute job depending on what needs to be done. So again, don't go crazy or anything. But as you can see when we zoom out, and again, almost no one will notice any imperfections on any of this once we get our background in there. And once this ends up being a thumbnail on a phone for somebody to watch. The other piece here is we could clean up a little bit around the gap here with our pencil. So I'll just clean up a little bit more of that because that's just a little bit more obvious. So we'll just clean that up here. Again, this will not take us too long. That looks pretty good. And if we need to restore anything, we just use the white brush and bring it back. The rhyming device I use for this is black conceals, white reveals. So when you're masking, that's all you need to remember between whether you use the white or black brush for any of this. But again, we zoom out and I've done a pretty decent job here of cleaning this up. And that didn't even take us that long. So didn't take us that long. So now after this, I just have to crop this the way that I want. For YouTube thumbnails, I like to show a lot of my face. I like to show elements that I think are interesting and would be relevant to the storytelling. So in this case, we want the pencil. I think my Buddha beads are fine to have in there just because, it's eclectic. And there we go. We've got a nice clean cutout of me, and that didn't take us too long. If we were doing Canva, you may not be able to do some of these things as easily. That's why I do think it's worth it to pay the $10 a month for Photoshop. So we have a question with Exploring Canada, and you're asking why blue screen for blondes instead of green screen. Glad that you asked. It's about color contrast and it's about the color spectrum of where, as you know, yellow and blue make green. But from a contrast standpoint, yellow blends much more into green, whereas blue and yellow contrast more on the color wheel. So if we want something to be more visible, in the case yellow, aka blonde, blue is better for that. So if you're blonde, green screen, and the bleed over from the green, it's just easier to deal with on a blue screen rather than a black screen. So yeah, monthly or yearly, I believe it's I believe it's $10 a month if you for Photoshop if you go yearly. And if you're going to use this all the time, if you're going to make 100 YouTube videos and you're going to do one or two thumbnails a piece, then obviously it's definitely going to be worth it to just buy Photoshop. Our friend Doug Houston here. Thumbnails are super important to nail. Thank you, Roberto, for the workshop. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate you. Um, so yeah. So there is that. And so now we have something really clean, really nice, and we've eliminated anything that could be a problem in terms of the details here. Now, as good as this is and as sharp as this image is, what I might want to do is I might want to do some retouching to it. The way I'm going to approach this is something called, I'm going to attempt to do this as non-destructively as possible, meaning I want to preserve my original image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a duplicate of my image here. I'm going to link these together by right-clicking and then going to a command called link layers. So there's lock layers, but there's also link layers. And where was it here? Oh, I didn't have both of them selected. So I'm going to select both of these with Shift, and then I'm going to right-click Link Layers. What Link Layers is going to do is it means these duplicates are going to move around every time that I do anything with them. That's going to become useful in the future, so you do want to make sure you're doing something like that. Now, what I'm going to do with this one is this top layer, I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to go to a menu called rasterize image. I'm going to go rasterize layer. What that's going to do is instead of this being a smart object like it is now, it's going to be a flat image. So I'm committing to this image. And then I'm going to move over to, and let me put my pen away here. I'm going to move over to the sharpen tool in Photoshop. And I'm going to specifically sharpen the eyes here. So they're a little bit sharper and they pop more. And I'm going to sharpen my eyebrows specifically. And I'm going to sharpen the details of the edges of my nose. I'm going to sharpen the lips a little bit, the facial hair around there in terms of the mustache and beard. I'm going to sharpen those a little bit more. And I'm going to sharpen the edges of the glasses. And as you can see, that pops a lot more and it's a lot more striking just from me doing that. Here's it without it. And you can see that still feels sharp, but it doesn't feel as sharp as this. This feels a lot sharper. This feels a lot more eye-catching. And that's going to be important when this is smaller and someone needs to click on it, because now it just feels like a much more high-quality image. Could also do this for foreground elements like the brim of the hat. And so it just makes it feel like a more premium image. So this is some of my basic retouching. We could also, I like personally to sharpen up metal objects when I see them. Sometimes I think also certain details in the hands, even though the hands aren't really a focal point of this, I just tend to see in YouTube that when there are certain things that feel sharper, like metal, that it just feels like you have a more premium high grade image. It makes it almost have like, the difference between HD and 4K. So we're just going to manually use the sharpen tool here on a few elements that just make this feel like details are popping off of the screen. Now, what we could also do if we wanted to take some of this further is we could do, if we wanted to, you'll see this for some YouTubers. I don't tend to do this with my photos, as you know, and most male YouTubers won't do this, but some do. If you wanted to try to do somewhat of a beauty effect, there is a way to do that. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to apply the layer mask so that we don't have the ability to do more cutout and masking. We're going to flatten that. And we're just going to call this beauty retouching layer. And there is or we can even just call this what it's really going to be, which is skin smoothing layer. I want to show you guys the skin smoothing technique. This is a very cheap version of the skin smoothing technique. There are more advanced versions. This is going to just be something for those of you who feel like rookies in Photoshop. This is going to make you feel like really capable. Is we use a skin smoothing technique where we do a Gaussian blur for skin smoothing. Then we can either use a blend layer of normal or screen. We can reduce the fill by maybe, I don't know. Um, we can reduce the fill or the opacity by a certain amount of percent. We could also just leave this as normal. And I'm going to show you, we'll start with it as normal because I'm going to show you what's going to happen here. So what we're going to do is we're now going to mask the entire image by holding Option. This will probably be Alt on Windows. And so that masks this out to where we don't see it at all. But now we're going to take a white brush, and we can use a white brush with any amount of opacity we want. In this case, we'll do maybe 50%. And then we could just start gradually blurring out by revealing this any areas, and then now we have this skin smoothing effect. Now again, I think that this skin smoothing is just a little much sometimes, and I don't think it's necessary, but some of you may want to do this. It might be a way to make yourself look younger. It might eliminate blemishes or details you don't like. You can use this to some degree reduce dark circles under your eyes. Like I said, I typically do not use this effect much or at all because I just don't feel like I need it or like I care. I'm a guy, kind of don't care. To make it look more natural and not eliminate all your texture, you might reduce the opacity to maybe 75% or so. This is just an old school beauty touching technique that's been around for a very, very long time. Some people will also use sometimes a screen effect with this and then turn down the opacity a lot if they also want to lighten their skin. I don't particularly care for that or doing that for my photos. But again, if you do use this, this is how you would approach it. And this is how we do it. And you could use this to reduce wrinkles around the eyes, crow's feet, things like that. And again, we're just taking a very gradual approach to it. And again, I just wanted you guys to be able to see how this is done so you're aware of the technique and you have it. And you can see that this also gives you that almost, again, this is the effect that you're seeing big YouTubers do. So when you see big YouTubers and you see these thumbnails that almost borderline on feeling a little almost fake, honestly, but they have that YouTuber look to them. Now you know how that YouTuber look is being created. So now you have a sense of that. Um, and if you've ever wondered how they're doing that and what it looks like and what techniques allow them to accomplish it, well, now you know. And knowing, as they say, is half the battle. So these are the techniques that the big YouTubers are using that you are not. And this is some of that beauty retouching that just makes you look a little bit younger, a little smoother, makes the photos in the thumbnail sometimes feel a little bit more professional. And you can see it doesn't take a lot to do. But yeah, you can make yourself just a little bit more handsome, a little bit prettier. Those are things you can do. Now, another thing you can do is you also can clean up if you have a little bit of red splotches or something in your eye. You can use a tool called the sponge tool and you can use a mode called desaturate. So if you use the sponge tool and use desaturate takes color out of things. So if I apply that here, where there's a little bit of red around my pupil, then we're going to be able to just leach that off just a bit. And we're going to be able to reduce that. So it's going to make my eyes look a little bit clearer, maybe not as bloodshot. So that's something that we can do. And again, to do that, you can just use the sponge tool. Another approach you could use is something like that. what we'll do is here. Yep. And again, just do it on, make sure you do it on the layer that you need to, as far as the layer that we used earlier before we did our retouching. So if I do that, it cleans this up because it's taking the red color out from there. And so it's not as pronounced. And so it's just making my eyes a little bit clearer. Now, this is not the same thing as red eye reduction. This is just something you do if your eyes are a little bloodshot. So this will clean that up. By the way, this also technically works as a natural way to take the yellow gradually out of teeth as well, if that's something you have concerns about. But as you can see, that just makes me look, a little bit more bright-eyed, a little more bushy-tailed. So as you can see, this makes my eyes clearer, makes them more white, makes them pop, and it still looks natural for the most part, especially as we zoom out. So you can kind of see the before and after on that with regard to my beauty retouching here. So again, this is not that complicated, but it's something that's not known by a lot of people that are not professional full-time thumbnail artists, that would be able to start with a foundation of good photography, which you can do on your own, or you can get some help, or you can get some professional headshots done even. Could be a good investment for you if you make enough photos and enough, if you want to pay for a professional photo shoot and some professional photo retouching, you do a model shoot. Maybe you get one done for $200. You can get a model shoot done for $200 for your YouTube thumbnails and basically get that done for like the year. And it would be worth it for you, in my opinion. I think it'd be worth it for you. And you just have to do enough poses, enough outfits, and you could have all that stuff staged with good lighting, and it'd be worth it. Maybe get them to do beauty retouching for you. And then now all you have to do is have these things cut out in Canva or Photoshop, and then you have the foundations for good YouTube thumbnails. So I think for a lot of you, it could be a good investment. It could be a good long-term investment to do that. It might be better than trying to take your time to just kind of do it yourself. Even if you're going to outsource and hire a thumbnail artist, if they have good photography to work with, your YouTube thumbnails will just come out better as a result of having good photography. So this gives us our base layer. We could kind of commit to this, and we could put this into a group so that we can just label this, you know, RB photo, so that we know, okay, it's me, it's the subject. So we have that. So this is a pretty solid foundation for us to work with. There is more retouching stuff we could do if we really wanted to, but I find this to actually be pretty solid. Now, another thing that'll help with this, we'll adjust it later for a background, but we can add something called an adjustment layer, and we can do with something called curves. And we want to usually do this in S shape, where we might pull the top to brighten it, and then the bottom to darken it. So all we're doing is really, we're making darks darker and we're making lights lighter. And this is before and this is after. So this makes it pop a lot more. You see me actually do this quite a bit in my thumbnails, whether you realize it or not. But just punching that up makes this look a lot less dull, makes it a lot less flat, and makes it stronger. So we like that. This is a good start. Now, the next step here is we could do a couple of things. We can either start to work with our text, or we could start to work with our backgrounds. We have options here. If you want to create the two-tone background effect that I do, the two-tone background effect I do is actually really simple. And we're going to do the smart version of it instead of the dumb version of it. The dumb version of it that I used to do is, I used to, like, a lot of times when I was feeling lazy, I would just take a brush, a big old brush in Photoshop at 100% opacity, and then I would just do something like this, and I would create my two-tone effect. And then I'd just like maybe clean it up later with an eraser, but I would do something like this when I was feeling lazy. That's actually a really bad idea, right? instead of feeling lazy like that, what I should do is I should take the pen tool, and what I should do with the pen tool is I should make a shape, and I'll hold shift to do this to make the bottom connect here. Then I'll go slightly above so that I have room to work with here with the top, and I'll make this diagonal shape. Then I will bring that straight across here, and I will connect it. And then I'll just clean this up a little bit. Oops. Clean this up a little bit by selecting this anchor, tighten that up a little bit, try to get that straight here. All right. And then I will go with my pen tool selected and say shape, and commit this to a shape. Now, the reason we just committed this to a shape is we can manipulate the shape. We also wanted to make it bigger than our frame so that we have some wiggle room with the angle. And if we need to, we can change the angle. And so we want this nice die cut rectangle shape. We wanted to create kind of a rhombus here. We wanted to create a rhombus here so that we can move this to however we want and to where we can extend the background. In theory, I actually want to extend the background in this direction more, just so that I have the most options. So if I do this, whoops, and I'll hold shift. Sorry, if I select both of these anchor points with shift selected, come on, shift, hold, and pull. I can make this longer, so I've elongated this. And the reason I've elongated this is it just gives me more options, more control over positioning without having to do it again later. So I like that to have options. The other thing I should do is for my background, is my background should just be a shape as well so that I can change my background whenever I want. Now for that, I can just go to the shape tool, rectangle. I'm going to click I for the letter I for the eyedropper here, then go back to the shape tool. And I'm just going to make a shape that's a little bigger than my frame here. And it's going to be red. And then I can delete this layer. So now I can just call this full background, and I can just call this die cut. And now the beauty of this is I can change this background non-destructively to any color that I want at any time. So that makes it really convenient to customize this, and it sets me up later to just have another customizable asset when it comes to my thumbnail backgrounds and building my thumbnail system. So the cool thing about all of this is now we've made this modular. We've made a thumbnail system that with the base of this even one thumbnail, we can customize a lot of aspects of it. Even this background is fully customizable now in terms of the color because we made it into a shape. So again, what this lets us do is something I call non-destructive editing, and it lets us take a systems approach to our thumbnail design. So really important. We got a new member, Stars by Teresa. Good to see you. Thank you so much for the channel membership. And we got a couple of your comments here. What about colors like purple and yellow, maybe pink? So with different colors, it just depends on what your brand is, what your needs and your design is. When it comes to color theory, though, I'm going to tell you guys a trick when it comes to picking colors for things. For one thing, the primary colors are just more visible to us and they become more clickable. If you actually research a lot of the most viewed videos on YouTube, they're using primary colors. But another trick is to use sports team colors. So just like how I have this blue here, do you know what's one of the best colors I could pair with this blue? It's actually going to be a certain type of orange. Why? New York Knicks or from another perspective, Denver Nuggets. So you see how clickable that can be and how contrast and attention grabbing that can be. Now, the other thing is separated from my photo layer, when it comes to this background grouping, I can actually have an adjustment layer if I feel like I like those colors, but I want them to pop a little bit more. I can go ahead and do an S curve here with the curves tool, and that gets me a lot closer to the proper brightness and contrast for those New York Knicks colors like I was talking about, and it's just also stronger. And because this curve adjustment sits above both the orange and the blue, it's applied to both, but since it sits below my photo group, it doesn't apply to them. The other thing I can do with things like the photo grouping is I could also do what's called a clipping mask, and I could clip this to where it only affects my, if I do a clipping mask, it then will only affect the photo that is sitting below it. So that also helps with controlling your effects, so your effects aren't universal. Do I use a transparent layer for textures and effects in the finished foam nail? I can. Yes, I can. And it definitely helps. Yep. So, to the question about what about colors like, purple and yellow or maybe pink, it just depends, right? And it depends on what your themes or your goals are. To use the sports color analogy again, watch this. We could use a purple, probably go maybe a little darker. And if we go with a purple and gold, who can tell me which sports team's colors those are? So do we have any fans of this particular sports team out there? Because again, we got another sports team's colors going on right here. So you see, that's something that we could do. And again, totally customizable. So so we went to Lakers colors and now we're back to Knicks colors. But again, we don't necessarily have to use Knicks colors. Like I said earlier, in my case, um, I'm using this contrast partly because of the fact that we're using a contrast with YouTube's red, and then blue is the thing that contrasts with it the most. So that's why I went with that as an example. Now we have several options here. One of the things I want to show you is I want to show you the concept of using fonts. We're going to get to object placement. We're going to get to textures in a minute, but I want to show you, something with fonts. So for example, in this case, we'll just do it from scratch. That's fine. We're going to use the text tool here. And I'm going to show you, we could use more than one approach to this when it comes to fonts. But I want to show you different YouTube fonts that are basically safe to use. And I also am going to show you that we're going to, for the most part, avoid the timestamp there in the, bottom right-hand side. So in this case, we're going to center the font here. And this is Poppins Bold. So this by itself is nothing special and it's not bad. We'll show you different fonts, but one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a drop shadow to this. So in YouTube, you guys can't see this menu on my screen right now, but there's a menu for the drop shadow. And what I'm doing is I'm just applying multiple drop shadows with different settings that I've just made pretty much custom. Fortunately, you're not able to see it in my screen, but that immediately creates depth. It makes it stand out more. It makes it pop, so to speak. Now, generally speaking, in YouTube, right about here is where that timestamp in the corner typically is going to be. I kind of intuitively know where it's going to be. And so that's going to be a thing. We had a question. I think Katie is asking this one. What's the target click-through rate for small and medium creators with packaging and thumbnail and title? So it's a good question. The problem is there is no real target click-through rate. The general rule that a lot of YouTubers, big, small, gurus, and non-gurus alike, try to adhere to is that look for trying to get 10% click-through rate. Now, here's the truth. The truth is videos can get views with any click-through rate. A video can get 100,000 views, 10,000 views with any click-through rate. And a YouTube video can fail with any click-through rate because the click-through rate doesn't matter. The amount of impressions you have decides everything, because a click-through rate of 20%, but you only got 1,000 impressions, okay, you can't get more than 1,000 views. Really, with a 20% click-through rate and 1,000 impressions, okay, you can only get 200 views on that, but you have a 20% click-through rate. If you have a 2% click-through rate, but you got 10 million impressions, congratulations, you still got a 200,000 view video. So I will show you guys, if you want, some YouTube analytics of my click-through rates, but I've had videos with 100,000 views and a less than 1% click-through rate before. And I've had videos with a 10% click-through rate that couldn't break 20,000 views. So what in general, the general rule is most people just want to get a 10% or higher click-through rate. But the truth is that click-through rates diminish based on impressions. The wider the audience, the lower the click-through rate is, but the views could still end up being high. A low percentage of a huge number is better than a big percentage of a small number. So, I mean, do you want 50% of $100 or do you want 2% of $100,000? 2% of $100,000 is better. So that's the problem with click-through rates. The other problem with click-through rates is click-through rates are averaged across every traffic source. So you could have, technically, you could have a 10% click-through rate on YouTube search, but what if you have a 2% click-through rate on the homepage? Well, that already brings you down to an 8% click-through rate. That's misleading. Well, what if this other traffic source like channel pages is 1%? Okay, well, that's misleading because now you feel like you have a 6% click-through rate and you're wondering what's going on. But maybe if the place where it's getting the most traffic, if it only that traffic source by itself has a better click-through rate, maybe that would help it out. So that's just an example here. Now, I wanted to show you guys this guideline just to show you a guide of where you can put your text to avoid hitting the timestamp in the bottom corner of a YouTube thumbnail in the bottom right-hand corner. It's roughly around this space, so you want to keep that in mind. It's okay if your text hits the timestamp if we can still read what the text is, but for a lot of you, that won't be the case. So you could see why I'm putting it right here. When we look at how small this gets, we can go, oh yeah, the YouTube timestamp will be right there. So we want to try to avoid hitting the YouTube timestamp. So that's something that I feel is just kind of important to do. Yeah, Malevolent Elephant is telling us it got 6 million views, but only a 4% CTR. So there you go. So don't overthink that too much. I in our analytics session, I will explain, I have explained in our other videos on YouTube analytics and the algorithm, explained how to try to read click-through rates properly. But what I want to show you now is just different fonts and what they could do for you. So this is a font called Poppins Bold, and you see what that looks like. But this same text done in another font will look differently. For example, I like Futura, but I specifically like Futura Bold. Here is what it looks like in Futura Bold. Futura Bold is a YouTube staple, and it's a really safe font to use. You can see that, this looks pretty good when it comes to that. The other thing you want to pay attention to is also how numbers look in these different fonts as well. So that's Futura Bold. You already saw Poppins. Well, what about Oswald Bold? Do I have Oswald installed? Yep, Oswald. There's Oswald Medium, Oswald Semi-Bold. Let's see if we have Oswald Bold. Oh, that's Semi-Bold. So this is Oswald Semi-Bold. Let's see if we have Bebas New installed on this Mac. Bebas New Bold. So this is Bebas New Bold. So the thing is, if you want to put a bunch of words together, Bebas New is thin enough and tall enough to make it to where you can get away with that. And it'll look good, and it's easy to read. And the numbers look very clean if you're trying to do numbers. So you want to see how these things can look and what they would look like for your thumbnails. So you want to play with fonts. Bebas New looks good. We saw that. Futura Bold looks good. Oswald looks good for us. And so does Poppins when it's Poppins Bold. So again, that's Poppins Light. Here's Poppins Bold. Here's Poppins Extra Bold. And again, even Poppins Extra Bold could look pretty good. Depends on how chunky you like your fonts. So again, those all look pretty nice. I also don't mind using Open Sans. Open Sans, when bold, can be really good. This Open Sans semi-bold. This is light. Light is too light. This is semi-bold. I prefer when it's Open Sans bold, but semi-bold is also readable. So that's actually pretty good. You also might want to test how your stuff looks with lowercase and mixed case. Some fonts can look good with lowercase and mixed case. Some styles and some types of channels would like and prefer that. Me, I use mostly capital letters. And so when you want all caps, you can also use Command K, and that will give you your all caps. So this I like. Now, some people will just go ahead and say, well, I want to make this pop. What if I just use red font? Red can work even if there's a strong enough drop shadow and I use another color for contrast. Red on red here can work. Obviously, the white is going to play better. The white's going to play better. Red could work. Gold here could work and will pop out. But I think the white is stronger. Red, white, and blue is actually something that works very well in general, but gold can work with red and blue in both cases very effectively. So you do have options when it comes to this sort of thing. You could also just go with preferences. Again, I have a preference more toward using the white for this. So that's kind of like the direction I would go in. So that is pretty basic, and I think we all understand that that's pretty basic. We're trying to not make something more complicated than it needs to be, but there are things we can do that can feel more advanced and give us clean thumbnails. So an example of this is if you want a textured background, you can obviously grab one from a stock photo website. I like using things like, what do you call it? Grunge textures and paint splatters and things like that. Let me see. I'm going to regenerate something because I have something that can work for this. Instead of just copying and pasting from what I already have, there is something I can use for this. I'm going to generate something using Midjourney just as a background. I know some people complain about artwork and stuff like that. Actually, I probably could do it here in Photoshop even without Midjourney and still generate an AI textured background. Um, so if I make a blank layer here and I go to image, um, there's a there's something here, generate image. Um, Abstract, black and white, paint, splatter, background. And I hit generate. Uh, so yeah, so Adobe is actually going to generate a background and we'll see how good it looks or how good it doesn't. And then we'll use a blend mode so that we keep our colors. So let's see here. It made this thing way too big. We need to scale it down or we won't even be able to see it. And it didn't stick entirely to only black and white. I should have, instead of saying black and white, I should have said only black and white. So that's one thing. So it created the a generative paint splatter effect here. Now the thing is with Adobe, it also created 3 versions of this, and I can just pick which one I like, or I can even regenerate it. I think I like this one. So I'm going to use a blend mode, and I can go with multiply, or linear burn, or screen, or overlay with this soft light, hard light. These things can just give me a texture effect I might be looking for. Usually in a lot of cases like this, multiply is fine, and then we could reduce the fill if we want to, just to make it textured. So usually sometimes something like a, 50% opacity, is probably fine, or 20 or 30%. You can play it by ear. And so now we have some text. We have a background with our colors. So now we have a texture. So this is before, this is after. This gives it a little bit more depth, a little bit more dimension, and it kind of plays into our theme. Another thing we could do is we can go ahead and we can add a drop shadow to our image. Go into effects, drop shadow. And then we can decide how strong of a drop shadow we want. We probably don't need a very strong drop shadow when it comes right down to it. We can also decide on the direction of the drop shadow, the size, the spread. We can decide how dark it is. We can decide how soft it is, or we can tighten it up. So again, we can just create some more separation. We can create some more depth there. And by the way, like I said, I always recommend that you do a photo shoot for this and not just worry about using a cutout from your video. I didn't use a cutout from my video. If you're new to the stream and you haven't been here the whole time, I actually didn't use a cutout from my video. I staged my photo shoots and poses with props and used it for this because that's a better way to approach it and to be super intentional and to get higher quality. And then we did a whole round of photo retouching. We did everything from skin smoothing to taking some of the bloodshotness out of my eyes. Um, we did a whole slew of things here, and it didn't take us super long. So we did more than just cut ourselves out. And the other thing here that I would say is the other reason to not just use a photo from your video is partly because of the quality. Do not be lazy on the thumbnails if you want people to potentially click on them more. So now we have established the following. We have a background, a middle ground with our subject, and we have a foreground with our text. So we have dimension, we have depth, we have layers, we have a stack here. You can clearly see a foreground, middle ground, background. That creates depth. We've got contrast, we've got high colors, we've got a main focus. Now, there are other things we can add and other elements we can have. In my own library, I have some assets that exist already. So a primary example is I have the Photoshop logo, for example. If I want to talk about YouTube thumbnails, I'm definitely showing you all the Photoshop tutorial. So, hey, we got Photoshop. So in this case, it's a smart object. I can resize it. I can make it bigger. I can make it smaller. I can do these things. So we have that object in there. We're going to move it back in our scene. And we're going to not have it go behind that abstract background, but we're going to put it behind me. So we can put it behind me and we can adjust it. We can put an angle. We can make it bigger. We can just kind of have it fill up and take up more space. So boom, we've got that. If we wanted to, I could also use Command T and go to the transformation tool, and I could try to distort this, or I could use the perspective tool and I could try to adjust the perspective. So that means slanting it in some way, changing these dimensions if I wanted to do that. I kind of don't. I like it flat like this. I think that's fine. And I'm not going to do the work to convert this to any kind of 3D button. When it came to the YouTube logo, I was able to find assets like that already. So it was fine. By doing this, we're creating more depth. So we like that. If I want to create a group for this, I can put another layer above it. I can make this what's called an overlay layer, or I can make it a soft light layer. I can take a 30% white brush, shrink it down, and then I can softly light this. And then it looks a little bit more interesting and like it has an interior glow effect. To make sure that that effect stays with the logo, I'm going to shift select my layer and my logo, hit linked layers. I'm going to label this overglow so that I know what it is. And so now what happens is when I move around this Photoshop logo, the glow that I put on it also is on there. So we've enhanced that. So boom, there we go. So now we're creating this depth. So then for this case, I'm just going to grab a copy of this YouTube logo and voila, this would be an alternate logo, an alternate thumbnail that I could have for the workshop that we're doing right now. This would have been just as good of a thumbnail as the one that we have for the stream. Now, what I'm also going to do here is the same way that I painted an overlay layer for the Photoshop logo. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a clipping mask here on this YouTube logo. I'm going to create a clipping mask. And I'm going to link these layers. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint above this YouTube logo here with a 30% black brush. And I'm going to darken some areas of it. Just give it a little bit more depth and contrast there. The same way I brightened the Photoshop logo, I'm darkening this YouTube one in some areas, but I could also lighten it in others if I feel like that's warranted, and I kind of do. So that makes it pop a little bit more because you can see what it looks like without it. Boom, I just made that have a little bit more character, pops a little bit more. So all of a sudden that looks really good. And just like before, because I linked these and I created that clipping mask, the effect moves with the YouTube logo. And so what I'm doing here is now I'm doing what's called somewhat the rule of thirds. So I'm creating the rule of thirds. I'm creating visual space, visual hierarchy. And again, if I move the photo of me, the effects that I put on me also move around. So I'm using this to kind of just make sure that the visual balance and space feels good and like I'm using enough of the space. And it also doesn't feel cluttered. So the reason I did this is we're doing something that I call in thumbnail theory, the vibes framework. So what we're doing is we made this as visually attractive as possible. Well, what makes a visually attractive thumbnail? We have the foundation of good photography, and it's sharp, it's bright, and we have that. So this is visually attractive. Another thing that makes something visually attractive is using things like depth, which we have with a foreground, a background, and a middle ground. What makes something visually attractive is when you have sharp elements in focus and things aren't blurry. So that's why we did some of our retouching. Look at how my eyes are sharper in there. And again, we did things like skin smoothing. We did things to make me visually more appealing and attractive in the photo. And we also made the photo itself an attractive photo with an interesting pose that tells a story. So what we've done with all of this is what we put together is something we call the vibes framework. It's something I teach in Awesome Creator Academy. So this is visually attractive at a glance. This is telling an interesting story at a glance. This has bold contrast, colors, and text. And now we have eye-catching elements. And what are our eye-catching elements? Our eye-catching elements in this case are we have the YouTube logo, we have the Photoshop logo, and we have me. So we have 3 eye-catching elements here. All right. We have bold colors, contrast, and text, and we have depth. Okay, great. We have our eye-catching elements. The S in the vibes framework stands for either status or social proof. We actually do have that in this thumbnail. So status and social proof. Photoshop is the industry standard of graphic design software and digital art software. And it's well known and people know what it is. It has status to it. And also, if you use it, there's some social proof there. The YouTube logo conveys status and social proof because it's talking about a platform that is universally used and familiar. So those are things that we have going for us. So we have the vibes framework, visually attractive at a glance, interesting at a glance, bold, color, contrast, and eye-catching elements and status or social proof are all visible in our thumbnail. So it passes the vibes check. It's got the vibes. It's given the vibes. So we've done the things that we're supposed to do in order to make this a clickable thumbnail. And again, I wanted to show you and walk you through each of those components and elements. And we made this something that we can adjust and customize pretty easily. And then we showed you the 5 fonts that I recommend and why they look good in YouTube thumbnails. And again, to a point that Beanie Draws is bringing up, that subtle texture does make the background look less flat. Absolutely. So when you just throw a color behind something, when you throw colors behind something and there's no meaning or there's only one color, it's not as interesting. For example, if I just have this with the red, it doesn't look bad, but it's not nearly as interesting, is it? So the contrast of the blue makes it much more interesting, more clickable, more appealing. That subtle difference does matter in this case. The texture might not seem like it's that important, but if I take it away, while still a good thumbnail, it does feel a lot more flat. It does feel like it has less character to it. So having that is better than not. The drop shadows add a little bit more depth, add a little bit more dimension. So having them, again, is it the most important thing in the world? No, but it certainly doesn't hurt anything to have them. So we'd rather have them than not. If we want to add a few more elements to some aspects of this that can just make it pop a little bit more, we certainly can. We can do some of what's called backlighting. So I can take a 20 or so percent white brush in Photoshop. Let's see, 20%. I can make it pretty big. And I will just go and I will put that about roughly here. And we can just go ahead and we can do a little bit of backlighting, which is just me putting this white brush in a few areas here. And then we can either leave that white, we can leave that normal in terms of a blend mode, or we can go to soft light, or we can go to overlay, do either of those. And, it's a small, subtle thing, but just having some areas appear lighter than others can just add a little bit more character and break things up a little bit more. So we can do that with soft light. Overlay will be more pronounced. I don't recommend doing it in normal mode because you can see how that doesn't look great. If you did, you'd want to make it really crazy subtle with like a like 10 or 20% opacity, and that's it. But again, it's just better to use a blend mode like soft light or overlay. I don't prefer the extreme of making it screen, but if you used screen, you could bring the layer itself down to about maybe 25, 30%, and it would still look okay. So this is without it, this is with it. I think having it adds a little bit of extra charm there. So this is actually really solid by itself. It really is. But we can add some other subtle effects here that you see me do in other things sometimes to just make everything feel like it lives a little bit more in the same space. So there are certain effects that I could use, like I could create what sometimes is called a color cast or a color wash in terms of lighting. So there's ways to approach this. I'm going to do a somewhat sloppy thing, but I'm going to show you how it can be interesting, but we'll clean it up or we'll do something different. But watch this. So I just did this here and we'll use color dodge for it. And you can see that color cast. And so you can see that when I did that, it made everything that it affected a little bit more blue. So it blends it in more. This is without it, this is with it. Now I can erase it from the areas I don't like, or I can mask it from the areas I don't like later, but watch this. See how it's now creating this effect as if blue light from the blue background is hitting me in the thumbnail. So that's an interesting technique, and it also blends together the YouTube thumbnail with having that light hit it. So again, it can add a little bit more charm. It can, a little bit more character. So color washes and color cast can do that. And again, I'm not even being that fancy with it. Now, watch this. If I take the red and I do another one, and I'm going to do this with a color dodge layer, and I come from this other side, and I'm only using about 20% here. I'm using it incrementally. Having a little bit of that on the shirt doesn't look too bad. And again, I can come back and I can clean that up a little bit with like an erase tool or even a masking tool. But again, it adds a little bit more depth to this. So if I label this color wash, And so it just makes it all seem like it lives in the same universe, so to speak, and it blends these things together a little bit more. So this is part of what people might call finishing. And so it makes this pop a little bit more. I could take this further by adding some layers where there's a few more glow effects or light effects in this, but you kind of get the idea. And so this is what makes modern, and you can guys can see for yourself, and you can discuss this in the chat. Um, you know, you can discuss this in the chat, but this feels like a modern YouTube thumbnail, doesn't it? With everything I've shown you and what this looks like, it feels like a modern YouTube thumbnail. And now you see that it's actually very possible to make this, and it doesn't require a massive amount of knowledge. It does require some work. We've definitely been putting in the work here. But if I weren't walking you guys through this step by step, it would not take an hour and a half to make this thumbnail. It really wouldn't. It's actually much more straightforward. So it is something that is possible to do in a relatively short period of time, maybe 20 to 30 minutes to get something like this for someone who knows what they're doing. But the key to it is really just understanding the individual steps, the individual techniques, and how to do these in terms of layers. And this is also why I prefer to use Photoshop or its equivalent like Affinity Photo or something like that, or GIMP. I'd rather use these tools than use Canva because I can't do the lighting effects and the painting effects, and I can't do that in Canva. Not very easily anyway. I suppose there's ways to hack it, but it's more complicated than just learning Photoshop in the first place. So I'd rather use this approach. And just learning some basics of Photoshop can really, really help you. Yeah, if you brush up your skills, like I understand, and like Canva is, I'm not saying you can't start with Canva, especially if that's all you have, because remember, you can get to the flat version for the most part of this without, as far as not having my lighting effects. You can basically do almost everything I did in Photoshop in Canva, except for the lighting effects. So do keep that in mind. Beanie Draw says, with the array of effects you can play around with, how do you work out the balance between too much and maybe not enough? Just practice, A/B testing. Well, I'm glad you asked. You only really need the effects that I demonstrated today, which is why I'm showing you this tutorial, because if you think about it, for modern YouTube thumbnails, and if you think about every creator, if you think about every creator who makes massive views on YouTube, almost none of them are using techniques that exist outside of the ones I just showed you. There's a few nuances to that, by the way, but think about it. Most of the YouTubers that you have ever seen are essentially using mostly the techniques that I just showed you, and a lot of them are getting massive views. The difference between you and them is just how complicated the concept is. And so the best YouTube thumbnails that probably are out there right now are probably not even really Mr. Beast. It's probably Hopescope, if I'm being honest. But for a Hopescope thumbnail, most of the things that are in Hopescope's thumbnails exist in the techniques I just taught you. Um, the big difference for Hopescope's thumbnails and the difference would be just the eye-catching elements, that instead of using the logos I used, she's using products. So if you had a bunch of products or product boxes, or you generated a bunch of product boxes, which technically some of that could be physical props on her part, some of it could be AI, but most of what I just showed you HopeScope's thumbnails with millions of views are done with exactly the same techniques I showed you. In fact, I can make another thumbnail pretty much right here, right now, and I can basically duplicate most of what's in a HopeScope thumbnail. Oh, wow, that's a thunderstorm. Hopefully, I don't get knocked offline here. I can duplicate most of what's in a HopeScope thumbnail, but for a guy, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And that HopeScope's thumbnails are basically using only the techniques that I showed you, but she has different elements to put in them instead of putting in the logos I just did. So I'll show you exactly what I mean by this. So we'll generate a new artboard and I'll show you another thumbnail because this one's basically done. But I'll show you a HopeScope style thumbnail. Um, let's see, new artboard. So we'll generate a new artboard and I'll show you how um, to make a HopeScope style thumbnail, but for like a guy. So let me go to her page and I'll like literally copy and paste one of HopeScope's thumbnails into um into Photoshop here. And then I'll break it down and show you, okay, here's how a dude would do this exact same thumbnail that has millions of views. So, okay, I found a basic HopeScope thumbnail that has 8 million views, and I'm going to show you exactly how I can make a guy's version of it. That would be my version. Let's see. So this is a HopeScope thumbnail. We're going to enlarge it, enlarge it, enlarge it so that we basically have what it looks like in YouTube. Okay, so this is a HopeScope thumbnail that has 80 sorry, 8.3 million views. This is an 8.3 million view thumbnail. We're going to use it as the base for our design, and I'm basically going to recreate it, but as a guy. So one of the easy things for me to do here is I'm going to use the eyedropper tool, and I'm going to make a shape layer for that color, and then I will just alter my shape layer so that I can change it later. So I use the shape tool. I'm going to grab the anchor points for the shape tool so that I can resize them and make this about half the size. Whoops. So I'm going to see where is that for her. It's in the middle there. So that's basically the middle. Okay. So we have that. Fantastic. I'm going to then use Alt and the keyboard, and I'm going to duplicate that more or less. I know I'm going to have to make this wider in a second, but it's okay. I'm going to grab the eyedropper tool for that pink. So now I've made it pink, just like hers. And now I'm going to, let's see, align right. So that's aligned right, align left, align right. Then I'm going to stretch this a little bit more so that it comes to about there. Okay, so I basically have now recreated the background for our HopeScope thumbnail. So that's our background because what I have now, whoops. What I have now is I have a pink and blue background. We're going to change the pink to another color to fit just more with me. So what we're going to do is we'll go instead of with red, since we've already used red today, we're going to go with, we're going to go with like orange. So we're going to go like, yeah, with like a burnt orange. And I don't think we need necessarily to use the same baby blue as her for you guys to get the point. We can use another blue. We can go more of a Carolina blue. So we'll use these. We'll go kind of NYX colors. All right. So we've got a Hope Scope background already. So we've got that. We'll align top. So basically, we've got the beginnings of the background. Okay, cool. Let's do the easy part. Let's go with, I think the closest font to what she's using might be Bebas New. So we'll just go with Bebas New, and we'll go with that. We'll use white text, obviously. Obviously. We'll go with Bebas New, bold. So let's see. That's already, that text is going to be pretty close to what she has. We're not going to use, we're going to use, yeah, that probably is actually close to the same thing. So we're going to go 15. Yeah. Is she using Bebas New or is she using something else? Interesting. Bebas New, bold. Make it a little thicker. She has a drop shadow on it, so we'll have a drop shadow on it. Again, we're recreating a thumbnail right now that has like 8 million views. So we're going to do that just to show you how close we can get this. So actually, we're going to duplicate that text and we're going to get 5,000. Yeah. So we got those pretty close. We're going to get them close in size. Whoops, we're not going to size like that. We're going to transform tool, scale. So in terms of size, we're going to get them really close in terms of size. Yeah, it feels about right. Then we'll just angle them. We're probably going to change what those prices are later for our purposes, for our thumbnail. But, oh, look at that. We can get the price. And I'm not telling you to copy big YouTubers. I'm making a point that I can make the same thumbnail as a thumbnail that has 8 million subscribers in terms of the same style of approach and layout. I can do almost everything that a thumbnail is doing in modern YouTube right now in the YouTube meta that has, you know, 8 million views on it. So now we need a thumbnail that can kind of sort of mirror an expression like this. And maybe it has an object. Maybe we have something for comparison. Maybe what we do for this one is, let me see. Maybe it is a thumbnail with me with a camera or something. Or maybe it's an interesting expression, because then Hopescope's thing here, she has a really interesting expression. So what we'll do is we'll take this one of me here. We'll remove me from the background with one click. So basically we remove me with one click, and then we'll just size me proportionately to Hopescope. And what we'll do to get the sizing right is we'll just basically use eye size, and we'll figure out eye line more or less top to bottom. And we'll use a guide for roughly, our face shapes are not the same, but if I use something and if I use eyes, nose, mouth as a relative guide, we can kind of sort of eyeball size just to get head size comparable. So now I think we've made the head size comparable for this. So now we'll just bring me into frame about where she is centered in frame. So, okay, we've now accomplished that. So basically, aside from the background elements, we've recreated most of this. Now, what we're going to do is there's a couple of things we would need to do. Obviously, we'd have to do some retouching, but our main layout is relatively the same when it comes to Hope Scopes. And the other thing I'm going to do is to make it easier for everybody to kind of conceptualize a before or after, I'm going to just duplicate the artboard. We're going to wait for Photoshop to do its thing. And then what I'll do here is I'll just eliminate all my stuff and we'll show HopeScope's version. So you're going to see her version and my version. I'm going to take away guides now because I don't really need them anymore. And we're going to basically see me, again, through my recreation process of HopeScope's thumbnail. The main thing here, I'm not posing with an object. That's the only real difference here. And my facial expression is going to be different, obviously. Let's see. We'll use curves, adjustment, and then we'll eventually just apply it to my face for the curves adjustment. We don't want too bright there. We don't want too dark there. We just want me to pop. So we've done that. So we're going to have our curves adjustment. We'll go ahead and we'll adjust for some of that later. We want to do this, and we're going to, whoops, nope. We're going to rasterize layer, link layers. We're going to apply layer mask to this one, duplicate it again. And the reason we're doing this is going to do a couple of things. So for this one, we're going to do our skin smoothing. Oops. Yeah, we're going to do our skin smoothing, and I'm just going to layer this skin. Remember what we said about skin smoothing. We're going to recreate the effect. You guys can't see it as much because like this is a low resolution version, but like HopeScope does the skin smoothing effect. So our basic version of doing it is we do a Gaussian blur like this. Then we make it into a layer mask. Then we go back in with a 20 or 30% opacity white brush. And then we go into the areas that we want and we use the Gaussian blur effect, painting with a white brush into the areas that we want to make smooth skin. She applies it, fairly the correct way, or her thumbnail artist does, and everything like that. And it somewhat exaggerates features. And then what we'll do is we'll also go back and then we'll sharpen things like the eyes and we'll brighten up the eyes as well. But you can see that this is basically our YouTube beauty skin technique. And you can see what that does. And because we're gradual with it, it looks pretty okay. If I wanted to take more time with this, I could take out some of the some blemishes. I could take out any of the molds of mine that I don't like or what have you. But for the most part, this is fine. We want to leave enough details in here to not have it look too hyper realistic. But as you can see, it's already creating that YouTube look that we all know so well. This is going to be my sharpen layer underneath. And so here we're going to take the sharpen tool and we're going to do basically the opposite of what we just did. But we're going to just be, and now there's other techniques you can use to do this, but now we're doing this around the eyes, specifically the lips my facial hair. Brim of the hat. And you can see that creates this very YouTube-esque look that we're very familiar with. So again, we're creating a very similar look to Hopescope already with this. As I said earlier, in the background part, we can also add for our background. We can make it pop a little bit more with the curves a little bit, depending on how we go about it, so that those colors pop a little bit more strongly. Then also size-wise, I just need those to be a little bigger. So just do that. So again, we've almost we're very close to finishing our duplication of this. Obviously, we're also going to add when we add our objects, we'll add drop shadows to our objects to have those take up the space that we want. So like I said, for like a Hopescope thumbnail, the next step here, and this is like literally I'm duplicating an 8 million view thumbnail. The next part of this that actually would matter is we're going to add some elements here in the background. Now, in this case, I don't think closed mannequins would matter for this one. There's different Hopescope thumbnails with objects and something like that. So I just need to get some kind of object that might matter or might be cool. If we're going to use mannequins, I suppose I could probably, find those or generate those using stock images. So that would get me close here. And then also to do something that makes more sense for me versus Hope in this case, it probably might really just make more sense to use cameras. So let me go and fire up good old like Adobe stock and get like some cameras to put in here, because those probably just make more sense for what my content is. Let's see. Yeah, this probably is fine. Show in Finder. Remove background. Then put it behind me. Drop shadow. Then we'll get another camera, the other opposite angle. Of course, we'll change these prices so that it makes some actual sense. Yep, this one is fine. So downloading another camera. And I'm going to duplicate the effects layer. So there's some continuity there. And there we go. If we look at this, I have duplicated basically in every way possible, aside from me not having a photo of me holding a camera. I basically have recreated Hope Scope's exact thumbnail, almost bite for bite, but for a guy. And this is an 8 million view video. This is an 8 million view video. The thumbnail, the techniques that the big YouTubers use, again, if you just knew the basics of um thumbnail design and the basics of Photoshop, you could be able to recreate the same thumbnails as the big YouTubers. You know what your biggest problem why you can't recreate the biggest YouTubers thumbnails are? It's that you're not doing the photo shoots behind them and you don't have other things that a thumbnail artist can use to build those thumbnails in terms of assets, and you guys don't have concepts sketched out. I basically took Hope Scope's concept and made my own version of it. And the thing is, if I had the time, I could go out there today and I could I, ironically, I actually have a mannequin for my merch in my basement. If I shot the right angle for my mannequins that have my merch, I could do that, Photoshop the change color effect to switch the shirt, do a reverse image on it, and then I could hold my own t-shirt or hoodie and I could completely recreate Hope Scope's thumbnail completely. If I did that, that would be a little bit more extra work. That would take me about another 20 minutes that we don't have, 30 minutes for me don't have to go down to the basement and shoot that stuff and set up. But the main thing is the photography is the foundation of what makes these thumbnails work. The layout, the text, the colors, Photoshop effects, it's very minimal to do a lot of those things. It's not that complicated or not that hard to recreate. As I showed you, I can recreate most of what's here pretty easily. The main foundation of what's more challenging to create here is the parts of it that rely on the photo shoot itself. The photo shoot itself is where you rely a lot more on the prep work. So the prep work involved from the photo shoot is a little bit more involved than just the actual layout that you'd have to do to be able to recreate this thumbnail or a similar thumbnail design. Even what I just showed you just now, as far as creating a little bit more depth here with brightening up the background and darkening the background in other areas and making it a little bit more intense. Boom. instant winner. You could do this in Photoshop, you can do this in Photo P, you could do this in a lot of things, but you know, that's the key here. And by the way, someone's asking about what if I used the blur effect that Hope is using for the camera. It's actually not a blur effect, it's actually called the mosaic effect. So there is it's a pixelate effect called mosaic. And so if you want the effect that Hope has, it's literally just this. And it's just called the mosaic effect in Photoshop, and it's under the filters. So I literally just showed you how to do everything you've ever, for the most part, almost anything you've ever seen a big YouTuber do as far as an effect. Because watch it, and here's the best part: we can literally just take that off. It's a smart filter. We can literally take that off. We can make it less intense. But that's all. We can even mask and control where it shows up or not. Because if we go here and we use a mask effect, we could take the effect off of one area of it and leave it on the rest if we wanted to. Now that doesn't look good to do it, but you see the point. The point is that we could do it, and you just have to know what you're doing. Um, and a lot of these things are very simple. So we have control over the effect. We have control over its intensity. We have control over the area of the effect. That's why if she's holding in her hands, she could paint like the area of her hands back in so her hands don't have to be fully blurred out if someone knows what they're doing. So we have the ability to do that. We can take the effect on or off. We can do a duplicate layer with or without it. We could just take off the effect itself. So um, this is something that makes it entirely possible for us to recreate what we see big YouTubers do. Like the Photoshop techniques and what we'd have to do there is not the part that's really special when it comes to the big YouTubers. When it comes to the big YouTubers, the part that's special is the fact that they're doing staged photography. Is the fact that they're doing staged photography and you're not. You're sitting there clipping a part of the video out and using that as a thumbnail. That's not what the big YouTubers are doing. They are staging their thumbnails and posing for them and doing photo shoots like I showed you with the batch thumbnail poses that I made that I showed you in the beginning of our workshop today. I showed you how I did a massive photo shoot. I had my YouTube play button. I had a 3D printed YouTube logo that I got off of Etsy. I had my giant pencil prop from Amazon, and I had two different outfit changes, different hat, different t-shirt for those thumbnails. So it's all about your staging. It's all about your staging, and it's all about your prep work for the thumbnails. That's what would make the biggest difference for a lot of you. And I hope you guys are really taking this in across all 6 of our platforms here: YouTube, LinkedIn Live, Facebook, Twitch.com, X.com, Kick.com. We have about 550 of you watching live right now. And I hope that all of you are studying this. I hope you'll watch the replay. We'll try and get timestamps for you. I hope you're taking notes, because this is the kind of thing that a lot of you'd go to community college for. This is stuff that would exist in a paid course. This would exist in a Skillshare course. This would exist in a training, a full paid training to get you kind of to understand these things. We've gone over the photography settings, the lighting, why you need the backdrop, the importance of the photos and the posing and the staging and the props, and what is involved in that, what kind of lights you should buy, why you need them, lighting, temperature, all these things that you take for granted. Could you do some of this with your smartphone and get to this point? Could you do some of it with free software? Yes. But the thing is, when you don't go just even the little extra mile, there's plenty of big YouTubers and their teams that will, and that's where it's making it harder for a lot of you to compete. A lot of you are finding it harder to compete because you're not doing competitive things. You're doing things because they're easy, not because they're the best that can be done. So do keep that in mind. The extra work of even what I showed you, of the fact that, okay, me sharpening, That made a big difference in like how this thing looks. The skin smoothing, it changed the look of this. So it makes it more of a YouTuber style thumbnail to have the eyes sharp and popping. Same thing for the hair texture being sharper, and then going in and doing some of the skin smoothing. For someone like Hopescope, she goes back in and her artist exaggerates some of the aspects of the hair color. The creators, there is some validity to the creators saying being authentic with screen print thumbnails. Do you know who that works for? It works for people who are really attractive. It works for people who are really attractive or have a really interesting look to them, or whose YouTube idea or thumbnail is really interesting because they live a really interesting life. If you live a really interesting life or you're very attractive, you can do the YouTube easy mode stuff. Or if you're very accomplished and you have a really interesting life story, you can do the YouTube easy mode stuff. But if easy mode and authentic thumbnails worked as well as people are claiming with YouTube easy mode, where are all the views for small YouTubers then? Where are all of you who are doing it? Where are your views at? Where are you getting the results that you want? So it doesn't work the way that they claim. It would work better if you're now, it would work better if you're more attractive. It would work better if you're able to put doctor or lawyer in the title of your video and then you still look average. It might still work. Um, if you have social proof or you're attractive, yeah, you can do an authentic thumbnail. But here's the thing: a lot of the YouTubers claiming that they're doing authentic thumbnails, they're still just doing a pose for their thumbnail, and the authentic thumbnail they claim works is something that they would get clicks for and likes for on Instagram because it still quote unquote looks good. So, I don't actually subscribe to this idea that just YouTube easy mode and like because I think it works if you are attractive or if you can put things like engineer, like we have someone in the thing, like someone scale trained saying, how about a hot looking engineer? If you're a tall, handsome guy and you can put engineer or you can put um doctor, like Dr. Mike. Dr. Mike, his whole shtick was originally just being the hot doctor on Instagram, remember? So like if you can do that, then it works for the so-called authentic thumbnails. If you're a bodybuilder like Sam Sulek and you look like the Incredible Hulk brought to life, you can just do an authentic thumbnail because you look interesting already. So you have to either be attractive, interesting, or have social proof for this whole YouTube easy mode thing to actually work. Because the thing is, if it worked for average Joes and average Janes, it would work in real life. Those of us who remember what high school and college was like, no, we know better. We know better. It would work. Why does anyone ever need a glow up? Or why does everyone need to get over an ugly duckling phase of this whole authenticity thing work the way people claimed? So I don't subscribe to that idea, not really. What I think is there are some people who are interesting enough in their story and in their title, or interesting enough in their look, or attractive enough to be able to do low lift thumbnails because the value proposition there is different. And the value proposition there makes much more sense. So they can do less effort there. In many cases, though, their authentic low lift thumbnail is still either being taken with a really good camera or still with good posing and composition. These authentic low lift thumbnails aren't blurry, are they? They are sharp. They're not blurry. They don't have crazy camera shake, and they don't sit there and have an angle that gives someone 2 or 3 chins. Now, do they? And that's the difference. Someone telling you YouTube easy mode, I think isn't being completely honest with you because the thing is, if I have good lighting, can take a picture with my phone because I actually know what I'm doing. Hey, thing is, if I take a picture with my phone of any of you and I have good lighting because I'm a photographer, I can make any of y'all look more attractive than you would if you take a selfie. I can actually do that. That's why a lot of you, when you go out, you say, hey, can you take a selfie for me? Or hey, can you take a photo with me? Because you know that the angle that somebody else can get and the composition that someone else can get, and that they can frame you and they can make you look more attractive. That's why husbands of Instagram is a thing. The husbands of Instagram are all the guys behind the camera that make the women of Instagram look better than if they took a selfie. Because if you don't know what you're doing and you angle like this, you're going to have 2 or 3 chins. If you don't know how to get the right distance, it's going to distort your face and your nose is going to be more flat and you're going to look less attractive than you would. If you angle too high, it's going to have a diminishing effect in some ways. So the thing is, you when they tell you that they're doing authentic thumbnails, what they mean is they're having somebody who's their friend, they're having their husband, their wife, their boyfriend or girlfriend take the most attractive cell phone picture with them that they can of them that they can. That's what's happening. That's the truth. That's the truth. They are putting in work to look authentic. They're making a scuffed or lo-fi thumbnail, but it's slightly above average effort from someone who knows what they're doing to create that outcome. And it's the same thing with the Instagram aesthetic. And I promise you they're posing for it. I promise you they're posing for it. So that's why I don't believe it. Even if they're using a screen print for their thumbnails, what they're doing is when you say a screen print, you mean like what was on camera. You can still pose for the shot if it's just something that's coming from the video that you edited. You could still be posing at the end of a video in the frame or even in the middle of the video for those shots and take it from the video and then claim that, oh yeah, I made an authentic, oh, I did a low lift. But no, you could literally still set an angle and do all the lighting and everything like that, and it can still be a thumbnail from the video in that way if you want to make it look authentic to where you're wearing the same clothes, same hat, same thing, same location, but you could just stage it still. You still would just be staging it and holding really still and be shooting it on a good camera. You want an example? Watch this. I will show you right now that you can stage a thumbnail and it just be a screen grab from your stuff. Watch this. You can screenshot this right now. See, that's a thumbnail. That's a thumbnail. Watch this. I have fake prop money. I have fake prop money here. Watch this. This is a thumbnail. YouTube thumbnail. That's a screen grab, authentic thumbnail. You can just pose and fake a thumbnail. It's an authentic thumbnail. That's a so-called authentic thumbnail. So-called authentic thumbnail. Right there. Watch this. I got a million of them. I got a million of them. So-called authentic thumbnail. Watch this. See, these are camera lenses. It's so-called authentic thumbnail. Watch this. And they get the lighting right. See, so-called authentic thumbnail. Watch this. So-called authentic thumbnail. Screen grab thumbnail. So-called authentic thumbnail right there. Screen grab from, you think like, oh, without me having to go down to the basement and shoot the thumbnail. So-called authentic thumbnail, right? That's the so-called YouTube easy mode lo-fi thumbnail. Yes, this lo-fi thumbnail with in this case literally 300 700 technically $1,000 worth of lighting still right here in this shot. $1,000 worth of lighting exists in this shot right now. There's a tube light here that is like $200 or $300. There's $150 Elgato lights. There's 600. Then there's backlighting back there going on. So yeah, there's like a low lift authentic thumbnail. Yeah, with my $1,000 worth of lighting around me, and I'm just in front of the camera. I'm just doing my thing. Yeah, with my $2,000 lens that I use on a camera as a webcam, and what is now probably still a $1,200, $1,000 camera. So yeah, um, authentic low lift thumbnail with $1,000 of lighting and still $3,000 plus of camera behind it, even though it's a webcam setup. And then with props. So again, low lift, lo-fi, authentic thumbnail. So that's the thing, right? The so-called low lift authentic thumbnail that you are hearing about, it can still be staged just like I told you, and it's no different than doing a photo shoot. It just looks like it's not. It's a candid done still with high-end camera gear, or if it's done with their phone for real, it's still done by the husbands or wives of Instagram. It's the person behind the camera. It's the husband behind the camera, the boyfriend behind the camera, the wife behind the camera, the girlfriend behind the camera. So again, husbands of Instagram is a thing. All those so-called candid and authentic Instagram photos, usually someone's boyfriend, girlfriend holding the camera for them. That's why we all know that when someone does that for us on the street, it's better than just taking a selfie by yourself. You don't want the double chins. You don't want your nose to be flat. You don't want it to be unflattering. And you know that it's like better to shoot 4 or 5 of them to get it right so that you don't blink. So we all know that. So I'm just exposing to you that's like the low lift authentic thumbnail of the YouTube easy mode is not what you think it is. It's largely misleading in some ways, but it gives a lot of hope to small YouTubers, but it's convincing you to try less hard, which is never the answer. And it's convincing you it's okay to try less hard, which is not really the answer. It doesn't do you any favors. So I just try to tell you the truth, and I try to just show you how to get better instead of saying, oh, don't try hard. I just show you, getting better isn't as hard as you think. Let's just improve your skills. So let's just go, like into Photoshop and let's just improve your skills. Let me show you what the big YouTubers do. Let me show you how the big YouTuber creates the beauty look. Let me show you how they sharpen the thumbnail. Let me show you how they do the composition. Hey, let me show you 5 of the fonts that big YouTubers use. Let me just reveal to you the actual bloody secrets. And it is a secret, not because it's secret sauce. It's because they won't show you the thing that they're doing, so it's not as easy to copy them. So when people say, oh, there's no secrets to YouTube or YouTube success, I get what they're trying to convey so that you don't get scammed. But when someone refuses to tell you what 5 fonts they use, they're keeping a secret that would make your content look more readable. When they don't tell you what fonts they use, that's a secret, right? When they don't tell you what software they use, that's a secret. When they don't tell you what music website they use or what stock photo website they use, that's a secret, right? When they don't tell you who their thumbnail artist that they hire or how to find a thumbnail artist or how much they cost them, that's a secret, right? When they don't tell you that to get a high quality thumbnail usually is going to cost you anywhere from $50 to $200 depending on what you need done and how many revisions you need and how much A/B testing you're going to do, that's a secret, right? When they don't reveal that or disclose that information. When someone is not transparent, that's called keeping a secret. So are you going to sit here and say that every big YouTuber with millions of subscribers or millions of views or even 100,000 subscribers is telling you transparently everything that they're doing and walking you through their process and telling you their tech stack and their tools, what lighting they're buying? I'll tell you what lighting I'm using. I'll tell you what camera I'm using. I'll tell you what fonts I'm using. Transparency is the opposite of hoarding secrets. So when people say there are no secrets to YouTube, I don't know what they're talking about. A lot of people will not tell you what they're using, who they're hiring, what they're paying, what they're being paid, whatever. So secrets do exist if there's information that you want and need to know that you don't have. And no, your thumbnails don't have to look like Mr. Beast to succeed. There are a variety of things that work, but there are different niches, there are different styles, there are different audiences, there are different things that are attracted to different people. What I keep telling you guys about YouTube success is like what I try to tell you all about YouTube success is this. You shouldn't focus so much on copying every single thing that big YouTuber is doing, because you're probably not trying to attract the same people. What I've tried to explain to a lot of you is that you're not trying to beat the algorithm and you're not trying to grow an audience. What you're actually trying to do is attract people to your content. And there are some things that will attract some people to your content, and there are things that will be unattractive to some people. What is attractive to some people is a Mr. Beast thumbnail. There are other people, maybe some of you watching this, you're turned off by Mr. Beast thumbnails. There are some titles that will entice you, and then there's some titles that will attract somebody and disgust somebody else. We have preferences, we have biases. Those things exist. When you are making your content, when you are choosing your topics, when you are choosing your titles, when you are crafting your thumbnails, you should only be thinking about what is attractive to your audience avatar. Who is your audience avatar? The viewer that I want to attract and the viewer that represents what I want most people in my community to be. So when I say audience avatar, I'm talking about this is who most of my viewers should be and who they should get along with and who they should be like or look like. That's who the audience avatar is. Is who do I want my community to be? Who do I want my community to be? That is the audience avatar. So depending on who your audience avatar is, Raul, if Raul's your audience avatar, and then you're saying they're copying a YouTuber and his audience avatar is Stacy, there's gonna be a mismatch there. If you're sitting there making content based on attracting a Stacy, you might be repelling a Raul. And the thing is, if your content doesn't is a mismatch, then it's a mistake. So you need to understand what is attractive to your audience avatar. You need to know what these people care about, what their preferences are, what their biases are, what is going to be something that they resonate with, something they find relatable, something they find enduring, something that they find compelling. And the thing is, there might not be a lot of people that are doing that extra effort to think that deeply about them. That's the key here. So that's why it's important if you want to succeed on YouTube. One of the most important things you can learn besides, the skills of photography, Photoshop, graphic design, public speaking and extemporaneous speaking, developing a better vocabulary, doing these little things. Aside from these little things, one of the most important thing you do is you have to get absolute clarity on who your audience is and who your audience isn't. Who your audience is and who your audience isn't. Your vibe attracts your tribe. So you're not here to just grow an audience of random people. You're not here to attract randos. You're here to find a community of people and to attract the right tribe. You want to attract your tribe. The way you're going to do that is you're going to have to get absolute clarity on what their biases are and what their preferences are and what would attract them and what would repel them. What is it that they're going to be infatuated with and what are they going to be disgusted by? And your goal is to make you and your content as attractive as possible to that audience you want to attract. And that's the big mindset shift. That's the biggest thing. That's the biggest thing. And it's the thing that nobody talks about. I rarely see anybody in content strategy ever address it. And you have to be thoughtful and intentional, and you have to know where your audience stands. You can make something that alienates your audience just based on values alone. You could sit there and you can make something and your audience be like, man, I thought you'd never do that, or I can't believe you, support that company, or that, oh, what, or I can't believe you hate AI, or I can't believe you love AI. It's about the values. The values are what are going to really be the determining factor of what the audience decides to do based on what they value, based on what matters more and matters most to them, will decide who they want to support and who they want to give attention to. So it's about what matters more and what matters most to them. Your vibe attracts your tribe. Your values have to be aligned. Value for the viewer. And so a thumbnail is a way to communicate value to the viewer. So is the title. The topic selection does that. So the thing that I try to teach beyond pure skills is these higher level concepts around content strategy. My content strategies aren't about hunting and chasing whatever new thing the algorithm does. It's about figuring out the basic laws of human behavior as they apply to a specific market, and then defining the tribe we want to attract within that market, playing to our strengths and our talents. There are some of you, quality over quantity actually would work because you're talented enough to pull it off. Most of you are not. Quality over quantity, I'll be real with you. It's a lie for most YouTubers. You know why? Most of you don't have access to quality content no matter how hard you try. Because you know what? The standard of quality content that you want to do doesn't match your lifestyle. It doesn't match the 10 hours a week that you have after work after being tired to actually do content. It doesn't match the resources you have. It doesn't match the experience level you have. The quality content that you're seeking isn't sustainable for you and isn't something you can actually pull off in some cases. So quality over quantity wouldn't work for you. What would work for a lot of you is making enough quantity of content that can get monetized and make enough money to start to build a war chest that then gets you to buy something that makes your life easier or makes it faster to make the content. And then because you can make the content faster and it still is good, it's not great, but it's good, you can start making a little bit more money. You start making a little bit more money, you have less stress. You have less stress, you become more effective at what you're doing. You have more money, you might be able to buy a course on something like a course on video editing that actually works for you, or a course on the drone for the shot that you want, or buy the drone. You might be able to buy the DJI Neo to get the shot that you need, or something like that. You're doing something, oh, I can invest in making better content because I made money. And I made money because my back catalog of content that, hey, these weren't getting 100,000 views, but I made a bunch of videos getting 10,000 views. Oh, I made some money. I made some money. I improved my content. You have to have a piggy bank. You have to have a war chest to invest in quality content. What makes the content better? It's going to be better lighting in a lot of cases. I mean, look at this. If I push this button, there goes the lighting. There goes the quality. The experience is not as good. Quality is an experience. Packaging is value. So when people say, no, the quality is the thumbnail and topic, no, it's not. That's not the quality. That's the value. That's the value for the viewer. That's the filter. Quality is an experience. So the thing is, oh, I came for this thing because I value that. But then when I got there, the quality was poor. So packaging first, then quality. Oh, the packaging is really pretty. Let me open it up. Oh, the quality sucks. Oh, it looks good. Oh, that's terrible. Ah, so it looks good, tastes bad. So guess what? If it looks good, that's a value proposition. That's packaging. That's attractive. Oh, it was attractive, but then when I actually experienced it, it was terrible. Oh, that person, he looked attractive, she looked attractive, but then they opened their mouth and they became much less attractive. So because they were a bad experience, they were a bad time. So just remember, value is upfront, the upfront packaging. It's about what you're getting through your filters. Then quality is the experience. And then you go, ooh, that's not as good as it looked. See what I mean? So there's a difference between value and quality. Quality is an experience. Value is the packaging. So the reason I bring this up is because of this. When you're looking at your content strategy, this workshop, for example, was focused on helping you improve one aspect of the value that you're displaying, which is the packaging of your thumbnails. The topic and title and timing plays a role in that packaging as well. But a lot of you you don't have the resources, time, experience, or the extra manpower and help to make the best experience possible. One of the things you can invest in to make the best experience for your viewers possible is when you buy a microphone like the Shure MV6 for $160 and get podcast quality audio, or the DJI Mic Mini if you're a vlogger, and then you get great quality audio on a budget. It's that lighting. When lighting's good, it helps. When it's not, it's a distraction. No matter how good my information is, this is not a really good experience to sit here in the dark with me. So it is what it is. The lighting is better. The video is better. That matters. If this was out of focus, it's not as good of an experience. So it being tack sharp is nice. Okay. So composition, like sitting here and like me having double chins wouldn't be as good as an experience. So composition, framing, those things all matter. So there's quality. That's attention to detail. That's craftsmanship. That's quality. It's craftsmanship. It's caring about your craft. It's caring about the quality of what you're producing. So you do need quality. Don't get me wrong, but there's a threshold of acceptable quality. And then there's people trying to be extra and they may not have the time, energy, resources, manpower, because you're a working class creator. If you're a working class creator, you just have less resources, you just have less to work with, and that's fine. Nothing against it. It just means that competitively, someone else out there in your niche might be able to do things that you cannot. So you can't necessarily always compete on the dimension of quality when it comes down to it sometimes. You can compete on value, and you might be able to compete on volume and consistency. And maybe you should where you can. And then when you can invest in more resources and you gain more experience by doing more, then the quality will improve over time and you'll get better and better and better. And so then that will open up new opportunities. And then if you're making enough money, you can hire people who have a talent where they can improve your quality even more, because there may be some talent you're lacking to where no matter how hard you try, you may not be able to level up fast enough. But you could hire someone else who can. And that could be video editing, that could be production, that could be thumbnail design, being a thumbnail artist. It could be your script writing and research. Some people hire for those different things in their team because those people are better at it. It could be that you're hiring someone to do the business behind your brand so that you can spend more time on just doing the content. So there's just a better amount of time and energy behind it for craftsmanship. So this is why sometimes I will push back on the quality over quantity thing, because I just think that a working class creator can't always do enough with the resources they have to compete on quality. But you can compete on value in terms of the packaging and demonstrating value. There are aspects of quality you can compete on. It might be that you're a better performer. It might be that you're more charismatic. It might be that you're more funny than a big YouTuber. So in that, the dimension of performance, you could win on quality of performance. And not everything is down to production and not everything is down to post-production. Sometimes it is. You might be able to compete on the quality of storytelling. You might have those abilities, but there are some other things you just may not be able to compete on. Sometimes the quality of the experience is something only, or even the value could be something only a big YouTuber can do, because maybe it's something that only a big YouTuber has access to. For example, getting invited to a special event or a red carpet, or being given a product early, or being given early access. Those things are competitive advantages, sometimes undisclosed advantages that you may not be able to compete with. I'll never forget, I ended up getting 250,000 views in about a week or so on a video because I was a speaker at an event that gave me access to a tech product in the real world while it was still on the trucks shipping to big YouTubers, which means there were only 3 videos that were out early on this product with hands-on reviews. Justine, CNET, and myself were the only YouTube channels that had out the Microsoft Surface Studio early with a hands-on review. and I got 250,000 views because I had access to that. And I had access to it because I physically went to a conference, Adobe Max, which I could only go to because I was a public speaker at the event and was working with Adobe at the time in that capacity because I was doing stuff for their blog. And it gave me the opportunity to do a hands-on real-world review with the Microsoft Surface Studio. And the only way that if you were interested in that product that you could see a video about it was Justine's video, because they shipped it to her super early before all the other big YouTubers, and they had shipping problems where they couldn't get to everyone else early, so she got her video out before everybody else, and they got it to CNET. And then I was at an event where they had them on display, and I filmed the video and I put it out immediately. And so I was early. My video had the ability to get more views faster because I had access when other people didn't. That was more important than a lot of things. That thumbnail, by the way, back then, it was a low lift authentic thumbnail, but I staged it as a low lift authentic thumbnail. Why? To prove that I had access to the product was the most important part of that thumbnail. The most important part of that thumbnail was showing that I had physical access in the real world to that product. So it was a still shot, not from the video itself, but I staged the photo as if it was from the video itself with me and using and drawing on the tablet at the event with people walking around in the background. And it showed people that it was a real video where someone had real life access to the product and that it wasn't clickbait. So that was really important for getting those 250,000 views in 2 weeks. And back then, I don't even think I had 250,000 subscribers. Actually, since it was probably 2016, I definitely didn't have 250,000 subscribers yet, I don't think. So that's why that sort of thing would matter in terms of understanding, what you need to do to be able to attract an audience, and how there's no one strategy. There's no one strategy. It's about what's the right strategy for that person. So if you can define your audience and what matters to them, again, product reviewers, for viewers that like to watch product reviews, one of the most important things for a product review is proof that the creator has the product. Because if you don't have the physical product, let's say it's the iPhone 17, the thumbnail could be a simple thumbnail. The thumbnail for an iPhone 17 honestly could just be this. As long as the camera bump is clearly the iPhone 17, this could be the thumbnail. This could be the thumbnail as long as it's the camera bump that shows that's the iPhone 17, because it shows that I have it in my hand. And that's why those are the thumbnails that Jacqueline Dallas from Nothing But Tech does for her real world reviews. A lot of the time, it'll just be her like this, because that proves that she has access to the product. Whether it's the iPhone or the Samsung Galaxy or whatever, it proves that she has access to the product, which for someone watching a product review, they want to know it's not clickbait. They want to know it's not faked. Product reviews do good for affiliate marketing, as well as depending on what how hot it is. Yep, absolutely. You can make a lot of money like that. I made a lot of money in affiliate marketing. So yes, absolutely. So yeah. So the entire point of this is that what the standard is for a thumbnail, or the type of thumbnail you have to do, depends on the audience. A tech YouTuber doesn't have to do a Mr. Beast thumbnail. I just, kind of illustrated a little bit of that fact for you, that that's not what would necessarily matter. For a Mr. Beast style thumbnail doesn't matter for a product reviewer. In fact, I showed you guys that, like I said, I feel like depending on like how I was approaching this thumbnail could actually work to some degree for my type of content. If you guys wanted to know, what camera gear to buy, and you wanted to see $600 camera versus a $5,000 camera and what it could do, there are a lot of you that would click on a video like this. Again, for who I am, I'd probably change the colors. this is a good thumbnail for me if I'm doing a video about YouTube thumbnails. But again, I took the same concept as Hope Scope did that got her 8 million views. Now, would this get me 8 million views? No, because you know what the difference is? There is a difference between a female-centric audience that will want to watch a video on finding the real life version of scam dresses, or I bought the same dress for $15, $50, $500, $5,000. That was her video that got the 8 million views. There's a larger female centric audience that cares about the difference of the value and quality that you get from different priced dresses. Much more of an audience for that than for expensive versus cheap camera gear. The audience for Hope is bigger than, even if I was Marquez Brownlee, I wouldn't get the same views for a video on cameras, even if I was the biggest tech YouTuber, as Hope will get a video on dresses. There are more people that buy dresses than buy cameras. So the total addressable market decides how many views you can get. Then it's about your effectiveness at attracting your tribe out of that market. And then there's what is your unique talent that is being brought to the table. Those things all decide how many views you get from your positioning on top of the packaging of topic, title, thumbnail, and timing. So again, it feels like a lot that goes into, well, dang, YouTube isn't as simple as I thought. But yeah, that's the kind of the point, is that YouTube is not as simple as people make it out to be. I understand that people are trying to give small YouTubers hope with YouTube Easy Mode. What I will say about YouTube Easy Mode is, I think if you wanted to do YouTube Easy Mode, be a political commentator then. Go into politics and news if you want to do YouTube on Easy Mode. Because for that one, the thumbnails and titles write themselves right now, and you could print money. You could print money. You just have to have a hot take for or against Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, AOC, Bernie Sanders. All you have to do is gather up your rogues gallery and your cast of characters, cut out a bunch of these people for your thumbnails, use some basic good-looking text, and you're off to the races. I mean, again, if if this were a Elon or Trump thumbnail, this same thing would work right now and would get a hell of a bunch of clicks if it was a news or politics channel. So you guys want easy mode? That's your easy mode. Most people hate politics. I hate politics, but people can't get enough of it. There's a group of people out there that can't get enough of it. They'll click on any video that validates their point of view or plays into their confirmation bias or lets them hate watch. They can't help themselves. Their limbic system's been hijacked. I would say in that regard that it's MK Ultra time. So the thing is, that's YouTube easy mode. If you really want easy mode, that's easy mode. Because you don't really have to think much about it. But that's not something that I think everyone should do or should want to do. I don't think it's a good thing that everybody wants to do that. So my perspective on it really is that if it comes down to it, you should not worry about easy mode, and you should work as hard as you can to attract the tribe that you want, and you should play to your strengths and your talents. Maybe the thing you're passionate about is not the thing that you're good at. So maybe you'd be better off finding out which of your passions is something that is actually a strength. Which of your passions is actually a strength, and then based on your strengths, who would be attracted to your talents? What tribe would be attracted to your talents and served best by your talents? And where will your talents be celebrated the most? And then, great, I have these talents. I want to attract this tribe. What could I say that would pique their interest? That's a title and topic thing. What is the topic that gives my talent the opportunity to shine? What's a title that'll be really interesting and enticing to that person? And then what's a thumbnail that would be really attractive and will make them stop everything they're doing and pay attention to me? That's how you should be thinking. Yeah. Side note from Scale Train Station, if you do politics, you really can't combine it with anything else. Well, technically you can combine it with social commentary because someone you can use Anton Daniels as an example. He can combine politics with culture. So he can take politics and then he can combine it with social commentary on Black culture. And so that will work. There's a bleed over and intersectionality of that with finance. And then if you're someone like, well, one of my students, Steve Ram, you could combine politics with finance where the overlap or intersectionality for that exists. So, you can combine, there's a little bit of wiggle room in politics to combine either finance or social commentary or cultural commentary, and vice versa. But there's a thin line there, and I really think most people do not have a thick enough skin to play that game and shouldn't. Um, I do not recommend it for anyone who wants to be mentally healthy at all. At all. So, yeah, no bueno, no bueno. Um, what I will say though is that people are finding success there because their talent for it is built in things like extemporaneous speaking, and your thumbnail game doesn't have to be as strong. So they play to their strengths: extemporaneous speaking, being opinionated, being fearless in their opinions and bold and standing on business. Those are their strengths. Graphic design and thumbnails and photography, probably not. So they picked a lane that they can win in. And I respect it. That's smart. Bo Raven has a great question. What about lifestyle content if you're a mom? Like how it affects your household and kids, just occasional conversations and vlog. Um, there needs to be an interesting angle there. For that, there's a lot of ways that can be successful. I'm not saying it can't be successful, but I'll give you examples of where it's successful and why. Take Slice and Rice. Take Matt and Glory from Slice and Rice. They're a set of family vloggers, but there's some intersectionality there. Before they had a family, before they formed a family, before they got married, their audience watched them be boyfriend and girlfriend, and they watched them have fun doing challenge videos and vlogs around their two cultures. You know, her Asian culture and his Black culture. So the mixing of them as an interracial couple had this really interesting dynamic to it. And their audience got to grow up with them. Their audience got to grow up with them, see them go from being college sweethearts to getting married and having their children and building their family. So they got to go on a journey. Guess what that is? That's called a sitcom. That's called a sitcom, boys and girls, a sitcom. You literally got to see people be college sweethearts, get married, have the first kid, have the second kid, have another kid. It's literally a sitcom that you got to sit there and have your favorite family that you watch every week. It's TGI Friday. It's the Friday night lineup for you, right? So because people got to grow up with them and see that, it makes really great sense for them that they were able to build and grow and have this audience and have other people watch them, endure with them. And some of their audience members got to watch them as they built their family. And then because they were part of a community, they found the person they wanted to build their family with. And so they have a lot of interesting stories like that. So there are these attractive elements and aspects. There are these aspects of just seeing yourself. If you're a mixed race kid, you get to see yourself reflected in that. There's representation there. If you're an interracial couple, or even if you're just a millennial that still wants to see a healthy version of a relationship in a family and wants that for yourself, you get to see that. So those are things that make it attractive to you. It's the same thing that made it attractive when people did it on sitcoms and syndicated television. It's the same thing. I mean, we have people in the audience right now saying that they miss TGI Fridays and the TGIF Friday night lineup, and they miss the old ABC wholesome family shows back then. Boy Meets World, Family Matters, Step by Step. People loved that. And again, now they have YouTubers that represent that. So, you wanting to do a mommy vlog and a family vlog, I mean, I think you have to think about the positioning here Full House, yeah. Like you have to think about the positioning of, well, what formula or what is the parallel with like the value of a sitcom or television show? Like where would I fit in there and what have you? What would that look like? And what are people getting from that? And the thing about that is from a certain perspective, there is what's the relatability? Who does this relate to? How big is that market? Who could be a part of this community? What does the community represent? What's the interesting story here? What's the most interesting thing? What are they watching? Why would they watch this? How many people could be watching this and care about this? So the thing is, to some degree, you have to live an interesting life that's worth putting on camera. And for some people, that's not healthy for them and their family to be interesting on camera. So the thing is, you could have really cool, wholesome, nice content, but it may not be that interesting, especially if you guys are being healthy. One of the aspects of that, and even the Masley family, with the Masley family, they've been on YouTube forever. So what happens with them, they're another interracial couple. They're also very much a Christian couple. And so between John and his wife, they have several children. Some of the children are older now, so people could even be watching it relating to being the oldest child or the middle child or a birth order or being from a big family. Some people like to watch the chaos of managing and wrangling the kids and trying with those kids. For some people, that's nostalgic. So it's like watching a big old family. I would say that their content, the Masley family, in a way, it's like a modern and interracial couples version of Seventh Heaven from the old days. If you guys remember Seventh Heaven on the WB, large family. They had 5 kids, 2 adults, so 7 of them. Then later they had twins, so then they had 7 children, 2 adults. So it's the big family. The Masley family is a huge family as well. So then you have that. That could be, an element, right? So then the value proposition, and this all ties to the workshop today about thumbnails in a different way because it's like topic, title, thumbnail, timing. We focused on how to execute thumbnails, but there's a why component to some of this too, and there's an audience development component. And a lot of you, from a strategy standpoint, because these are workshop Wednesdays, these are strategy sessions too, it's that if you want to get into vlogging, the reality is vlogging is, or even lifestyle vlogs, a lifestyle vlog is nothing more than a television show about you. It's your version of the Truman Show. If you're doing a vlog, you're making a Truman Show. You have to ask yourself, are you willing to live a life that's interesting enough for other people to watch compared to the life that they're living right now? Is your life more interesting than the life that your viewer is living right now? What are you doing that is interesting to the average person beyond living their life for the next 20 to 30 minutes? That's the key. Because if you make a vlog and you're making a lifestyle vlog or a family vlog, you are competing with someone and say, watch me live my life for 20 minutes instead of living your life for 20 minutes. So your life would have to be more interesting than the life they're already living for the next 20 minutes. That's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. And I would say that the best version of that is going back to sitcom television, ABC, UPN shows, and WB shows before it was the CW. And some of the best formats for that, again, Seven Heaven. You're watching the family dynamics between 2 parents wrangle 7 children of varying ages, of cross-generational ages. So you had the oldest son, Matt, and I think the oldest daughter was Lori. By the time they were a certain age, they were trying to find partners and get married. You had the teenage kids. I think one of them was Sam, and so he had a rebellious punk phase where he was at odds even with his family's Christian values. You had Ruthie, the youngest and most precocious and curious one that could get into problems. So like again, so that was like Seventh Heaven. That's a sitcom show. So it's like, okay, you're watching family dynamics, you're watching growing pains, you're watching people come of age and into adulthood. So that's why, okay. So when we watch big families, we're watching and we're recapturing kind of that scenario when we watch these family vloggers that have a ton of kids and we're watching these kids grow up. And again, if you're a young person, you might be growing up with them. A lot of people who watch family vlogs, they're young kids and little kids. Some of them wish their family was like the family they're watching. Some of them don't have both parents, or some of them live with their grandparents, or some of them are in foster care. You'd be surprised. They're watching this because they are like deep down, they're like, this is what family should be like, and this is what I'm missing out on, and I get to at least see what this is looking like, or healthy relationships. It's sometimes teenagers who are even thinking about, oh wow, I'm watching this family. Oh, I can't wait to be a mom. I can't wait to be a dad. And this is what my family will be like. And they're thinking about that. So if you're someone who wants to be a vlogger or a family vlogger, you need to be breaking it down. You need to be looking at, okay, if someone's watching my life, what example am I setting for them? You should definitely be thinking about that. And if I'm watching my life, what's so interesting about my life compared to their life? And if it's not that super, super interesting, what makes it so relatable and what makes it feel so real and would make people really invested emotionally because they feel seen? Or what's idyllic about my life? What is aspirational about my life that makes someone want to better themselves by watching my journey? That would be what makes somebody watch a vlog. At some point, I will do a video about vlogging and whether vlogging is dead, or my tips or ideas for vlogging. Maybe I'll even do a workshop here about the concept and everything like that. I've had clients who are vloggers. I have friends who are vloggers. So again, um, so I have friends and colleagues who are vloggers. My friend Benji Travis, you guys might know him better through his wife, Judy Travis, also known as It's Judy Time, the quintessential mommy vlogger, the ultimate progenitor and original mommy vlogger. The original mommy vlogger was It's Judy Time. That's Judy Travis. That's my good friend Benji Travis's wife. And he does cooking vlogs, Benjamin TV. And he's the ultimate girl dad. So maybe that's a collaboration. Maybe next time I'm in Vegas, I just do something with them and we could talk all about vlogging, right? So there's that. There's things like family matters. Like Family Matters, the dynamics of what made Family Matters interesting was, yes, it was the teenagers, but it was also watching working class people like Carl Winslow and Harriet Winslow manage their family as working class people. There's an interesting dynamic there. Um, the fact that their family, actually, I'll tell you a real story about the concept of why vlogging is attractive. Think about it like this. What no one understands about Family Matters is the character of Steve Urkel. They don't understand the relationship he had with the Winslow family. He is the person who watches a family vlog. Do you know why Steve Urkel would watch a family vlog? The reason he was at the Winslows and would walk into the Winslows house and make himself at home is because the deep, dark secret of Family Matters is that whenever Steve Urkel described his relationship with his own parents, Dr. Urkel and Dr. Urkel's wife, who is also a doctor, both of Steve's parents were doctors. And they constantly worked around the clock and they never made time for him, and they emotionally neglected and abused him. Steve Urkel was a latchkey kid with careerist parents who loved their careers more than they loved their son. And to get familial affection and to get a father figure and a mother figure and the sense of family and community and acceptance, he had to go next door to Carl and Harriet Winslow's house to know what a family is supposed to be like. That's the deep, dark secret of Family Matters, is that Steve Urkel had to go to his next door neighbor's house to know what it's like to be part of a family. And there are people who are the audience for family vlogs that are going through that, and that's what they're watching, is they're watching to see what it's like to be actually part of a family. That's deep, and no one talks about that. No one thinks about that, because if you watch Steve Urkel and you watch Family Matters and you watch that, the way he describes his relationship with his parents is the description of abuse and abandonment. So that's a deep take. We all cried in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air when Will Smith stopped acting for a minute and then opened up to Uncle Carl and to his actor. That was not acting when Will Smith had the breakdown and was like, "The hell with him! Why he don't want me, man?" And he starts crying. That's not Will Smith acting. That's Will Smith venting. He stopped acting in that moment, and we all cried right there with him. Okay, so um, that was heavy. That was deep. That was a deep cut. But just remember, this is why people are watching sitcoms. This is why people watch vlogs as well. It's emotional investment, and it's also they are seeking some connection and a sense of family that may not exist in their own experience. And that's why they're watching these vlogs. So your job is, if you wanted to be a vlogger, is to understand some of these things and to build your content and your strategy and your packaging, your thumbnails, your titles, your topics, all of that. If you're going to be a vlogger, you would have to live your life and film your life in such a way that would probably say to somebody, I mean, it's a little bit of a deep cut, but in a way, it's almost like saying to somebody, and this one, I got full screen again for this one because I got to give this one to you raw. Like, because, and this line is a line in Game of Thrones. It's like, well, I can be your family. That's what the content says to that person is like, well, you can be part of my family. You may not, know what it's like to be a part of a family and have healthy relationships and have somebody show up for you. You can have a part of that by being part of my family, being part of my community. You can tune in here every week where we treat you like family. Like that's what someone's looking for a lot of times, whether they know it or not, when they're watching family vlogs and they're watching a vlogger. So if you want my advice on what it means to do vlogs and to be a vlogger, that's what my advice is. My advice is that the person watching is, maybe they're gonna say in the comments, or it's gonna be flippant, or they're trying to act like it's not meaningful to them, or they're just trying to be entertained. But deep down, the thing that attracts people to family vlogs is the same thing that attract them to sitcoms. They want to feel seen, they want to feel heard, and there are aspects of the family dynamic that they want to see because they're not experiencing them. Susie Jackson says, "Roberto, you've treated us like family." Thank you. I like to to some degree I like to think so. Um, I'm actually really not that different than what you see on camera and everything like that. And this is what my own like family, this is what my mom and siblings have to put up with me. This is what my friends have to put up with me. So, yeah, I guess I do treat you all like family. I do treat you all like family to a degree. Um, uh, I aggressively want you to do better, and I don't mind yelling at you if that's what makes it happen sometimes. Um, so I guess I do treat you like family. Um, the the thing is that's kind of my take because it was brought up and I've wanted to address it kind of for a while with regard to the vlogging thing. Is my belief around that is very specific, and it comes down to, I believe that's the sitcom formula. I also believe that most of modern YouTube tropes are derivative of TV. I feel like if you watch, for example, the rise of Jake and Logan Paul, whatever your feelings about them, guess what? They're the MTV era brought to Gen Z who didn't grow up with the Gen X and millennial version of MTV. Those of us who are millennials and Gen X, we grew up with Real World and Road Rules. And guess what their content is? Their content is basically the equivalent of Real World and Road Rules. That's what their vlogs were, brought to a Gen Z audience who didn't experience those things. So the Paul brothers were essentially those MTV style like people, and they were combining Real World and Road Rules with also with Punked. Um, you could take David Dobrik at his height of fame in the Vlog Squad. Gen Z and Gen Alpha who are watching him were experiencing a little bit of Punk'd and MTV True Life and MTV Made. That's what they were getting to watch to a degree. There's content going on to some degree that you can look at and say, actually, Jake and Logan Paul, you can actually also throw in another aspect to their stuff. Jersey Shore. A lot of these IRL streamers, Jack Dotree, Neon, these type of people, a lot of it, basically, you could look at and go, oh, that's Jersey Shore. It's the reality TV thing. So there's that element of it. The YouTube formats that you're seeing are just derivative of things that existed for Gen X and millennials that were not viewed by Gen Z, because Gen Z, for the most part, they stopped watching regular television when they grew out of Nickelodeon. So they didn't get into a teenage phase of watching content on television. And they don't watch movies unless they're big spectacle movies. They don't watch films. They watch movies, and they watch movies on streaming, and occasionally they'll go to the movie theater, but they haven't actually watched films. So they actually also don't understand film tropes either, most of the time. And I know I'm generalizing, but think about it. Almost no one in Gen Z knows what Gilligan's Island is. They don't know what I Dream of Jeannie is. They don't know what Bewitched was. Bewitched, they don't know none about that. Ding, 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 ding. They don't know about Samantha with that nose wiggle. They don't know about Bewitched. They don't know about I Drew a Genie. They have no idea what those things are. They don't know who Darren Stevens is. They don't know about No McMahon and Tate. They don't know about Mary Tyler Moore. They don't know about Dick Van Dyke. They don't know about Green Acres. So guess what happens? Those things and things derivative of those end up being YouTube formats. I'll give you another example. Reaction videos are America's funniest home videos. Reaction videos are derivative of America's funniest home videos. Prank videos on YouTube are smile, you're on candid camera. And then beyond that, they're, MTV's Punk'd, or if you were a Nickelodeon kid from the 90s, it's also what would you do? What would you do? So it's that. Mr. Beast's content is derivative of Wild and Crazy Kids, Double Dare, and to a degree, it's Wild and Crazy Kids, Double Dare, and what were some of the other game shows on Nickelodeon? Wild and Crazy Kids, Double Dare. He doesn't do as much with gaming stuff, so you can't make an argument for Nick Arcade. Legends of the Hidden Temple and Nickelodeon Guts. So Mr. Beast videos are derivative of Nickelodeon Guts. Wild and Crazy Kids did the stunts where they had massive teams, red team, blue team. They had big old teams. Wild and Crazy Kids with 3 Coast. Omar Gooding, Donnie Jeffcoat, and then they would usually have some third host that was like a female guest. So Wild and Crazy Kids in Nickelodeon era, right? So Mr. Beast, the big spectacle stuff, a lot of that's Wild and Crazy Kids. The challenges like Last Leave and stuff are also derivative of that, believe it or not. A lot of his other stuff, derivative of Double Dare, derivative of Legends of the Hidden Temple, derivative of Nickelodeon Guts with the aggro crag for the physical challenges. And then, of course, later, it just became wildly derivative of Squid Game. So that's how it is. It's all those things. Gen Z never, and Gen Alpha never grew up with that stuff because those things were from a bygone era that they never experienced. So think about it. I mean, I see a lot of you in the chat agreeing with me, but it's like I can do this all day with a lot of different types of YouTube content. Think about it. Clip shows and reaction videos right now, they in their head think they're derivative of Robert Dyrdek's ridiculousness. But Robert Dyrdek's ridiculousness is derivative of Tosh.0. But Tosh.0 is derivative of America's Funniest Home Videos and Candid Camera. So it's just how far back do you want to go? That's what comes down to with a lot of these YouTube formats and what's popular. The skit stuff that you see on YouTube is derivative of In Living Color. The skits, the characters, the recurring characters, things that you see with that and characters. I love Caleb City, but Caleb City in many ways is if Jim Carrey decided to start at Jim Carrey or Eddie Murphy decided to start just acting out anime characters. Everyone who has multiple characters in their own content or multiple characters, that's derivative of Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy played against himself in skits in comedy. Eddie Murphy was the original dude to act in multiple roles and act against himself. So everybody who does I'm portraying 5 characters or 2 characters or 3 characters in my skits, all that's derivative of Eddie Murphy. Think about it. So that's the truth, right? I mean, I can't make this up. I can't make this up, as the kids say. So that's what you're looking at. A lot of the content that is even vlog-like content about people chasing their dreams, that's just MTV made. All that is MTV made and MTV True Life. The confession style videos that people make and stuff like that, that's MTV True Life. Even the apology videos are just the confessional videos that people did breaking down in the confession booth in MTV's Real World and in all the other dating reality TV shows. A lot of the aesthetic vlog-like content that you see from cozy life girlies and aesthetic girlies on YouTube and TikTok, that's all derivative of The Hills and Eighth and Ocean. MTV's The Hills and Eighth of Ocean, all of the Instagram models, all of the aesthetic life female TikTokers, all the aesthetic life YouTube girlies, all of that is derivative of even the luxury brand content, all that's derivative of The Hills and Eighth and Ocean from the MTV era. That's all it is. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me how I'm wrong. So, Terry says, "Hey, Roberto, this is great for entertainment content, but how can or it be applied to educational channels while still maintaining credibility? YouTube feels a little like an infomercial nowadays." Okay, so actually, the funny thing is, the infomercial thing is exactly what you're talking about. For product review content, it's QVC and Home Shopping Network, which is actually working right now on Amazon content. It's working for beauty gurus, and it's working on TikTok Shop. So for content creators who do product reviews, even info product stuff is absolutely derivative of QVC and Home Shopping Network. But I'll take it further. Mark Rober, everyone's favorite engineer, inventor extraordinaire, is derivative of, wait for it, if you're a millennial Gen Z, remember this, Mr. Wizard, Mr. Wizard, and Bill Nye the Science Guy. Same thing for, and I love this content creator, Simone Yurts. Again, derivative of Mr. Wizard and Bill Nye the Science Guy. To a degree, the docuseries style content, that Cleo Abram does, which I absolutely love, in many ways is derivative of educational content from PBS and YouTube, with a lot of it being derivative, in my opinion, of Nick News with Linda Ellerby back in the day, but done in a more fast-paced docu-style format, which was done on a couple of PBS shows, but also was adopted and modernized by Vox, which is where she used to work. And then in terms of education content that you would want to do would be derivative of formats that existed in the form of PBS network television and in the form of educational content that was on Nickelodeon and in other programs and other formats and content that was geared not necessarily toward kids or teenagers, but also toward adults that was information-based content. A lot of talking head YouTube is actually just derivative of news content. Primary example, podcast, all video podcasts, including Joe Rogan, are derivative of Howard Stern. His radio show filmed as video content and put on television was the original video podcast, if you really think about it. So it's all derivative of that. It's all derivative of the Howard Stern show. In many ways, you could argue that content that there is a format of content on YouTube for entertainment and crude humor that's derivative of the Man Show with Adam Carolla and Jimmy Kimmel from back in the day, right? So you have that. Variety, there are variety shows and programs that you can argue are derivative of old school media, variety shows, and telethon shows. Okay. For education content is largely going to be derivative of news content in a way. Education content also will be derivative, depending on your style of it. It'll be derivative of education style content will be largely derivative of documentary style content, but also the education-based documentaries that would show and not just tell. So what those would be a lot of times the hosted content. Primary example being The Wonderful World of Disney, hosted by Walter Disney himself. If you think about the quintessential talking head video, the quintessential talking head video that is trying to take you behind the scenes of something that you might want to do, basically comes down to Walt Disney presents The Wonderful World of Disney. It's a talking head video. Maybe you're followed around a little bit, panned with the camera, and then you're introduced to something that you wanted to learn about or know more about that's high concept. It's The Wonderful World of Disney. Oh, the what shows do I think the YouTube camping um and outdoors genre is derivative of? It's simple. It's all derivative of Survivor. It's derivative of, in some ways, History Channel's Alone. It's derivative of, there were outdoor camping shows and stuff like that that were on things like PBS and the Learning Channel back in the day as well. If you want to know education content, look to PBS, look to old school PBS and old school The Learning Channel. Education content's derivative of a lot of those formats. The home improvement niche in YouTube is derivative of This Old House with Bob Vila. A lot of the art content is derivative of everything that Bob Ross did. Even most art channels are, they're slow talking paced. They try to get a calm, low energy vibe. They try to take that approach. That's all derivative of Bob Ross. Think about it. And a lot of the DIY niche is derivative of This Old House with Bob Vila, as well as the arts and crafts and stuff that would also be on PBS and on the Learning Channel and on TBS. Someone here is saying that Miss Rachel is sort of the female Mr. Rogers. Yeah, you can make somewhat of an argument for that. Oh, the fitness stuff. The fitness stuff is derivative of, we used to have late night fitness programs come on in the middle of the night. You had that time on the day. There was like Zumba stuff. There was that. There was P90X. This, there was all this stuff. So that was always around. The fitness niche, that stuff was already around. That was on, they used to, like Suzanne Summers used to have a fitness program on television, on daytime television in the 90s, if not the late 80s. Yeah, Bob Ross was the original ASMR as well. Yep, Billy Blanks, Richard Simmons, Suzanne Summers, they all had fitness programs on television in the 80s and 90s, and you could argue that fitness content today is derivative of that. A lot of what people do today in the photography niche is derivative of things they grew up watching from the photographer side of America's Next Top Model. They would watch what Nigel Barker would do. And almost all photography YouTube today has inspiration that is derivative of Nigel Barker's work when he was on America's Next Top Model with Tyra Banks. So his content is largely derivative of that in many ways. Fashion YouTube, there's a lot of aspects of it even when it's not bridal content. There are aspects of it that you can clearly see the inspiration from bridezillas from back in the day from WeTV. So there is plenty of precedent for established formats that YouTubers are, whether they mean to be or not. I'm not just saying everyone apes and copycats, but there's also no shame in it because even everything in the 2000s aped from the 90s, aped from the 80s, aped from the 70s and 60s. So the thing is, there is a wildly successful format out there for whatever it is you're trying to do that's already been proven that it can attract people. You can borrow elements of it and other genres and then remix them and then properly steal like an artist. Then you have to show up and show out and make sure you're bringing your own unique things to the table, bring your own unique talents to it, play to your strengths, and not pursue those things if you're weak at them. Shed the weakness, and then you have to keep going. And those things would largely work out better for you. But I digress. A lot of this, again, like I said, the main cut of this was meant to show you guys, which I think I accomplished, by the way, the thumbnail design techniques and aspects as used by big YouTubers and to introduce more of you to concepts like the vibes framework and why we want to make visually attractive thumbnails at a glance. We want to make sure that they could tell an interesting story at a glance. We want them to be bold in terms of text, color, and contrast. We want to incorporate eye-catching elements, usually three of them. And then we want to use status and social proof. And so I also then showed you that I can recreate in my own way the equivalent of a thumbnail from a big YouTuber. This is Hope Scope. This is a thumbnail format and style from her that got 8 million views. Am I saying that a camera comparison of $600 camera versus $5,000 camera will get those kind of views? No. Different total addressable market. I just wanted to show that I could take inspiration from one of the biggest female YouTubers getting views today and then make a male-centric thumbnail that uses the same techniques just to illustrate the point that photography is the foundation of good thumbnails and that you need to move intentionally with this. And then I showed you guys that I did a photo shoot with hundreds of poses and that it gave me options to where I can create a variety of thumbnails that are intentional and thoughtful and staged. And then I went through and debunked and dispelled a lot of the myths behind so-called authentic easy mode thumbnails by showing you that easy mode thumbnails are kind of contrived and fake when they say, oh yeah, I just take it from a clip in my thing and I don't try very hard. Yes, they do, because watch this. This is a thumbnail. This is a thumbnail. This is a thumbnail. Those are all thumbnails. And that's staged and contrived, and it looks like it's low effort mode because you could screenshot my screen and you could make those into what people think are authentic YouTube thumbnails because, oh, there's a real background. It's not AI generated. He didn't cut himself out in Photoshop. But okay, an authentic thumbnail. You mean an authentic thumbnail where I have a prop, in this case, movie prop money? An authentic thumbnail that's low lift, low effort thumbnail? You mean where I'm shooting with a $2,000 camera lens on a now what is now a $1,300 camera with literally $1,000 of lighting? two Elgato key lights, $150 a piece. That's $300. Tube light here, another $200 to $300, and about another $500 of lighting in the background. Oh, that low effort screenshot thumbnail, screenshotted from the video. Again, I can fake a thumbnail and say, oh, I can pose for a thumbnail and say it's authentic, and I just screen capped it. That's a authentic low effort thumbnail, right? That's a low effort thumbnail. That's what everybody's all about, right? But it's also an Instagram level thumbnail because, again, I told you, easy mode is not easy mode. It just looks easy because they're not being honest with you about it. Because even if they say, no, 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 I shot on my phone. You didn't shoot on your phone. Your boyfriend or girlfriend shot on your phone 2 feet away, cropped in with the good version of the camera. It wasn't a selfie because when you take selfies, you get double chins. When you get selfies, we see up your nose. So no, we all know that the better photo is not a selfie. It's when you get some stranger walking by, or it's when the husbands of Instagram shoot the photo. It's the husbands and boyfriends of Instagram shooting the photo, or a stranger on the street that actually has a good eye. It's not some easy mode thing that you shot as a selfie with your phone. That's when people say they're doing easy mode, they're lying to you, or they're at least not disclosing all the information. So again, those are things I felt you wanted and would need to know. I think they're things you found helpful. We spent like a good 2 hours and change of this largely on the actual photo shoot, the thumbnail, the camera settings, all of those things. So I think that was really good. But I also think that there's an aspect of where there are tools out there, whether you want to believe it or not, AI can help you in some cases, and it does. Benefit people in minor ways. And there are a lot of people who think that they're not using AI, but when you use any of these tools, Photoshop or Canva, there are AI things happening in the background for quite a bit of them. So you're still using AI. So I just can't get over it. But I digress. My point is, for a lot of you, there are little simple things and tricks that would make your life easier for making your packaging of your thumbnails a lot better, a lot more compelling, a lot more attractive that you could be doing. We covered the majority of them and majority of the techniques that the biggest YouTubers use. We covered the fonts that people are using that look very good and that will read well on YouTube, and the techniques behind a lot of these, how you do color combinations, how you can cut yourself out of the backgrounds more effectively, how you can clean up, how you can do some basic level beauty retouching that creates that YouTube thumbnail look. So we made sure we dived into a lot of that for you. We're going to go back, me and the mods, and put some timestamps in here to really try to do what we can to help you out. But like I said, Workshop Wednesdays are just where I come on and I try to help you with your strategy or any component I can of YouTube and give you real world advice that actually works. We're not sitting there hunting the algorithm. We're trying to do the best we can to attract the audience and attract our tribe, because then you don't have to think about the algorithm. And I think that if you really start to just understand how human all of this is, and that relies on you connecting emotionally with real human beings, it'll all make a lot more sense. If you've enjoyed the content tonight, make sure you look in the description of the YouTube video. We have a link to my free Creator Foundations course. It's a pay what you want or pay what you can course. It could be $0, could be $5, could be whatever you want to tip me if you feel like I've created any value for you. If you feel like I've created like $1 of value, $5 of value, you can get the course and you can decide that you want to donate $1, $5, $3, whatever it is. Or if you just, can't do anything at all right now, it's $0. Over 800 people have gone through the Creator Foundations course. They've had good feedback on it. We have some more lectures we're adding to it. We have a 90-minute monetization masterclass that I gave in person at a live event, and we took that video and we gave it to you guys free in the Creator Foundations course. There's over 4 hours of other footage there answering your most basic questions about content creation. We've also started the 10 Pillars of YouTube lecture series, which is a really good series to better understand YouTube and psychology around content strategy. And so we've released 2 of the 10 lectures so far. We have the other ones editing, and those will be released soon. So you can get the free Creator Foundations course at awesomecreatoracademy.com. It is linked in the description if you want to check it out. And it's a free course. In the future, I know I'm going to be making paid courses, but I wanted people to be able to say that they've had a good course experience from somebody before that makes good course content. I also make these workshop Wednesdays for you guys absolutely free. So you can see the benefits of what somebody can teach you when they know what they're actually doing, and somebody who can show you the nitty gritty behind something and a process and how you can get some of the same outcomes or results or understand the process behind what big YouTubers do. One of the things I even showed you guys tonight, if you missed it earlier, was I showed you the exact technique that HopeScope uses to get the mosaic effect in Photoshop. And it's really just a simple smart filter that you can toggle on or toggle off, or that you can even use with masking in there to take it off just a single part of or reduce the effect. And so we have the ability to do a lot of the same things big YouTubers do. You just have to know what tools they're using, what techniques they are literally called in the real world, and when to apply them and when not to apply them. And those are principles that might exist outside of a 5-minute tutorial. Sometimes you need to watch a process from beginning to end. So you literally got to see me, watch me make two completely different YouTube thumbnails from scratch, and you got to see me dissect and analyze a big YouTuber who got 8 million views on her video and recreate more or less the same thumbnail, but translating it from a female-centric thumbnail to a male-centric thumbnail. So, that's an example of what you can look forward to when you have somebody who can teach you structured learning, real-world advice, and then actually has technical ability and skills to teach you something that you want and need to know. So hopefully you guys gained a lot of value from this. Before we head out tonight, I just want to get a handful more of your questions and thoughts in the chat, and I want to pop some of those up on the screen, you know, um, so that you guys get to have a little bit of your say. Creative Owl says, do you do video reviews? Actually, I do channel reviews, which could include video reviews, reviews of your analytics. Those are one-on-one paid reviews. So if you want a one-on-one consultation for your channel, the information there is linked in the description. You can also check out awesomecreatoracademy.com. If you go to awesomecreatoracademy.com/store, you'll see everything that I offer, whether it's one-on-one coaching. You can join the Awesome Creator Academy Pro group. We meet on Tuesday and Thursday nights twice a week. So that's actually a really cool opportunity. You can think of it as YouTube night school twice a week. If you check out Awesome Creator Academy and what we're doing in the pro group, we have a lot of great people over there. Like I said, we meet Tuesday and Thursday nights. That's what I do when I'm not streaming on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So you definitely check that out. Let's see. Giraffe Student Elephant says, Roberto, I've watched your content now for 7 years. Met you at a YouTube conference in Dallas last year with Daryl Eves. Yeah, that would be Vid Summit. I misspelled his name, unfortunately, but I appreciate your contributions. Yep, no, thank you so much. Yeah, Daryl Eves is great. Wonderful guy, wonderful mentor, has helped me a lot, has done so much for the community, and he knows exactly what he's doing. So, love everything from Daryl Eves and the Vid Summit community. Let's see what else we got. Katie Ukulele says, I still think he might use one of these as a thumbnail for his video for like 2 weeks to show us stats. Yeah, I might. We'll see. It's possible. Um, there's only a technical difference between playlist and episodic content. There's a minor difference, but conceptually, you could just apply it in much the same manner. America's Next Top Model taught me smiling with your eyes, and that's the only thing you remember. Stage drama, someone asked about that. That would basically be Jerry Springer. Jerry Springer is what all of YouTube drama channels could be argued to be derivative of. And then to another degree, TMZ is built off of something that existed before it called real news. As for, I think SSP Diver was asking about maritime mysteries and stuff like that. That's somewhat derivative of unsolved mysteries, but it would be the spin of just the ones that are like lost at sea stuff and what have you, and diving accidents and stuff like that. So there was unsolved mysteries. There was also real TV. Um, and there was also, yeah, the History Channel. So it'd be that. But yeah, Maury and Montel and Jerry Springer, to a lesser degree, Ricky Lake. All of your drama channels are somewhat derivative of that. Dating podcasts are somewhat derivative of that as well. Dating podcasts are derivative of that, and also derivative of the MTV culture around things like Room Raiders and Blind Date and like the Hot or Not era of like MTV. Someone earlier was waxing about fashion channels and fashion advice. That would be derivative of the programming on Bravo. That would be derivative of the stuff on Bravo. Yes, I very fondly remember Are You Afraid of the Dark? I would love a reboot of Are You Afraid of the Dark? They should reboot Are You Afraid of the Dark? They should reboot or do a sequel to The Secret World of Alex Mack. They should do a reboot of The Secret Journey of Alan Strange. They should do, they have to not mess these things up. They need to draft Melissa Joan Hart and reassemble the entire cast of Clarissa Explains It All and do a sequel series to Clarissa Explains It All and bring back the entire cast, the entire Darling family, mom, dad, Ferguson, the best friend Sam. They need to do all of that. Maybe the boyfriend Cliff. So yeah, they need um, to do all of that. Um, I don't know that they could do a reboot of all that. I would like to see potentially a reboot of the Roundhouse, though. Less controversy surrounding that. Um, So yeah, I'd like to see a revival of the Snick era of Nickelodeon and bring back Are You Afraid of the Dark, but reboot it completely, bring back the Midnight Society and reboot it completely. Bring Melissa Joan Hart back since we all love her and do Clarissa Explains It All, and now either recast her as the new mom in it or have it be a sequel series to that. Bring back that. Secret World of Alex Mack, you could completely reboot it. I don't think we need a sequel. I think we just need a reboot of that. I do like that they gave that show a definitive end, though, but they left it open-ended as to whether Alex decided to keep her powers or not. So I'd like to see like a reboot of that. There was a failed reboot of the Tomorrow People. I want that to be revived because it was heading in a good direction, honestly. Um, then again, all the actors may have moved on to bigger and better things, so that'd be hard. They were all CW talents that went on to other things. Robbie Amell is doing a bunch of stuff, and he was the main lead, and he was, he's still doing a lot of stuff, and so on and so forth. So, um, but yeah, Are You Afraid of the Dark? Secret World of Alex Mack, The Secret Journey of Alan Strange, reboot that one. Clarissa Explains It All, like I said. You got to have that back. I think you could get away with bringing back Salute Your Shorts, if I'm being honest. I'd like to see a reboot of Hey Dude, and I'd like Hey Dude and Salute Your Shorts to have a shared universe. Have Hey Dude and Salute Your Shorts have a shared universe. Yeah, Roundhouse is a throwback. It was the original, all that, and Roundhouse was done in a manner more similar to In Living Color, but with young people. Bring back Tales from the Crypt Keeper, but bring it back as an anime. There was a Saturday morning cartoon show, but this time bring it back as a dark anime and make it a dark serial anime and only give it like 12 episodes for Tales of the Crypt Keeper. So that's kind of what I would like if I was going to bring back and spin the block on nostalgia for millennials and Gen X. Those are the IP that I would want to see brought back. Oh, and I think you could bring back Nick Arcade because of the new technology. It'd actually be worth doing because now we have AR and we have VR and we have so much graphics technology. It would be worth it to bring back Nick Arcade. Oh, and do a complete reboot of the Animorph series. Do a complete reboot of the Animorph series. Bring Kay Applegate on to write and direct and screenwrite, and let her change the ending because the way she ended the Animorphs books was just like not great. Um, and she focused way too much on the Elemist and Cryak by the end of it. Um, but relaunch and reboot the Animorphs and give it a series and write it in seasons in such a way to where the seasons can just be can end in case you're not able to continue and finish the story for the books. But I would actually start the show and boot the show with the idea of getting to the end of the of the books, but rewriting the ending of the books and changing some of the direction of the books and the focus. So I would just redo Animorphs. I would just do a complete reboot to Animorphs. Would I release them on Nickelodeon or on another streaming platform? Technically, because of the Viacom relationship, I think that they would be a really good incentive for Paramount streaming. So that's the way I would do it. If I was in charge of Viacom and Paramount, I would release them on Paramount Plus, and I would probably let and license YouTube talent under Awesomeness TV to react to these to hype it all up. I might even, since Paramount and Viacom own Awesomeness TV, I would get big YouTubers that are under the network of Awesomeness TV, maybe even people like Anna Akana and stuff like that, and then cast them into some of the roles for these, like cast them as one of the parents or something, or one of the teachers or something, to attract part of their audience. And yeah, I would probably release these on Paramount Plus, and then I would license YouTube creators under Awesomeness TV to let them do reaction videos to some of these and teasers, and um maybe even get someone like iShowSpeed to react to all the episodes of something on stream. And so that's how I would probably drive traffic to it. And that's how I'd probably do it for Paramount Plus, because all these are Nickelodeon properties. Since they're Nickelodeon properties, they would fall under Viacom. Viacom, and it has the streaming service of Paramount. That's where I would do it. Of course, nobody in the executive leadership of that company is smart enough or has the wisdom or the foresight to actually go in that direction. nor do they love the community or respect the people who created those IPs enough for that to be the case, unfortunately for all of us. So. But anyway, that's it for me tonight, you guys. It's been great hanging out with you. It's been great riffing with you guys about just some interesting creative ideas. Again, we did the workshop stuff. Links to all the resources that I recommend are, of course, as always, in the description. Make sure you check us out at awesomecreatoracademy.com if you want to work with me. If you want to support the channel, you could also check out any of our cool products like the AI creator prompts. That's $9 for 200 ChatGPT prompts for creators. In fact, I will just go ahead and drop that link for you guys right here, just to make it easy. So make sure you check out Get 200 AI Chat GPT prompts for $9 right here. So make sure you guys check that out. I just dropped that in the chat for all of you. It's a way to support the channel, and you also get some done for you AI prompts that can help you with your productivity and your content creation. So make sure you're checking out awesomecreatoracademy.com. Make sure you're checking out our AI creator prompts for ChatGPT and all of our other cool stuff. Like I said, if you want to work with me, you want to do one-on-one coaching, anything like that, check out awesomecreatoracademy.com. Link is in the description. It's been a great night. I'm going to bounce. I'm going to pretty much go straight to bed. And I'm going to also make sure that tomorrow I queue up our Friday stream for channel reviews. Those are done via Super Chats. If you want to see how those happen and what the deal is with those, check out our previous live streams in the live tab over on YouTube and see exactly how we do the YouTube channel reviews. Maybe even if you don't end up getting a channel review, seeing how we do it for someone else will inspire you and give you ideas. So you can check that out by watching on the channel anytime you want. We're going to be doing another one Friday. We're going to do that a little earlier in the evening on Friday, probably around maybe 6:30 or so. And then I'm going to bounce and do something with my siblings for Friday night. But yeah, it's great hanging with you, all of you. Stay awesome. And if you want to learn more about Awesome Creator Academy, we have a outro that tells you all about it. Also, thank you to our super chatters, Doug Hewson, new channel member, stars by Teresa, and our super chat from Achaya Black. Thank you, everybody, for the support. Stay awesome, and we will catch you next time. Becoming a content creator can be a very lonely process and adventure, but it doesn't have to be. When I first got started going from 0 to 100,000 subscribers, I had to do it all by myself. I didn't have a community of like-minded and like-hearted creators to talk to or to ask for advice, and I certainly didn't have a mentor to guide me along the way. I built the Awesome Creator Academy Pro group because when I was getting started, what would have meant the world to me is not to have to struggle alone when it comes to being a full-time content creator. If I had had a community of creators that I could talk to and share information with, I would have avoided a lot of mistakes in my early career, and there would have been opportunities with brand deals where I would have gotten a better understanding of how to negotiate, and I wouldn't have undersold myself. I wouldn't have been taken advantage of in those early situations. So in the Awesome Creator Academy Pro group, myself and our co-instructor Andy Rivera, we meet twice a week for office hours with our creators, and we share information, we talk about how we're building our creator businesses, and we offer constructive criticism and critique on the things that we're working on for our projects. You'll be part of a community of usually around 100 like-minded creators who are taking this seriously just like you are. You'll also have all access as a pro group member to all of our past, present, and future courses, training, templates, digital downloads, and swipe files. You have full access to our creator blueprints where you'll see our systems and the frameworks that we use to execute. You know, you always fall or rise to the standard of your systems. A lot of people really underestimate how important that is. We have digital download templates that can help you so you don't have to start with a blank canvas. These done for you files are actually incredibly helpful, especially for things like your thumbnails, your media kits, and anything you need for your branding as a content creator to look professional. We have email swipe files that help you with reaching out to brands. We have great information in helping you price yourself and build your packages appropriately. And remember, as part of the pro group, you have the opportunity to ask questions from myself and all the other creators participating. And so this means that if you need to ask questions about a negotiation or a brand deal, there's something you're not sure about, you're trying to find a better monetization opportunity with merch or affiliates, you have people who have done it before, who are already making money, that you can reach out to for advice. As I said, when I was starting out and I was flying solo, this is the thing that I wish I'd had the opportunity to be a part of, and it would have made all the difference in the world in helping me be an even more successful content creator. If you have questions, you can always reach out via support. We're happy to help you figure out if the pro group is right for you. Also, we do have the opportunity for you to become a VIP member if you also would like quarterly one-on-one coaching with me directly. Now go out there and create something awesome today, and hopefully we'll see you in the pro group. Take care.